Encounter with Ancient Egypt. My Horus. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226. On the fifth night when no letter was received, a pig claw named Lin Ya took Ipt, palace guard Jehsekhara, and Amónhotep's personal attendant saw her out of the palace and headed for Tanis in the north. Will Amónhotep find out that we are out? The chariot was galloping on the deserted green land. Ipt tilted his head and asked Lin Ya uncertainly, "Don't worry, she won't. She has eaten so much chickpea soup. I'm afraid she is defecating in the toilet now. The distance between Tanis and Memphis is actually very close. The chariot will arrive in a few hours if it is fast enough, and it only takes one night by water. Normally, one letter can be received every day, but this time there was no letter for 5 days. Although Jehsekhara kept saying that there was nothing wrong on the front line, she was still worried. Finally, today she couldn't help it anymore, and gave Amónhotep heavy chickpea soup instead of chickpea soup, and ran out when she was not paying attention. The cloak fluttered in the wind, and the wooden box on the car jingled with the movement of the chariot, making the already uneasy heart even more restless. Did Aksha really have an accident? If he was fine, why didn't he send her a message? She read the so-called battle report from the front. It didn't sound like his tone, but she was so flustered that she couldn't care about anything else. All these mysteries will be solved when they reach Tanis. She just hopes that the carriage will be faster, and she wishes it could fly there. But it can't be faster. It happened suddenly. In order not to attract other people's attention, the couple rabbit and donkey are pulling the carriage. In addition to the height difference between the two, donkey is pregnant and has a big belly. Fortunately, the land route to Tanis is relatively flat, so it's just a little slower, but it's still faster than the water route. On the boat in the dark night, a burly woman was rowing the boat with a blank expression on her coffin-like face. The oars occasionally hooked up the reeds in the water, making a rustling sound. Behind her, a small woman laughed non-stop. Ha 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 ha. The expression on the coffin's face cracked, and a trace of black appeared. "Do you think you are much better than me?" The small woman stopped laughing instantly, tugged at the chestnut wig on her chest, and her face was full of grief and indignation. "Where did His Highness find such a princess? Why don't you play by the rules? How did she know that she and her are very similar?" The two women, one tall and one short, are Jehsekhara and Saha in disguise. Lin Ya said that in order to prevent anyone from intercepting them on the road, they split into two groups. She and Ipt took the land route, and let Jehsekhara and Saha take the water route. They were asked to go out first with the boxes in their arms, leaving a back view in front of Amónhotep. It was easy for Saha to pretend to be Lin Ya. He was a thin boy. After dressing up as a woman and wearing such a wig, his back view really looked a bit like Lin Ya. Jehsekhara was in a tragedy. A tall and mighty man, he had to pretend to be a woman. He couldn't even wear the largest maid's outfit in the palace. In the end, he tore a piece of cloth, made a hole in the middle, and used it as a large-sized hooded gown. This plan had some loopholes. First of all, Jehsekhara's figure did not match Ipt. The initial plan was to let Ipt follow Saha, and Ipt showed his face to confirm Saha's identity. But Ipt was unwilling to leave Lin Ya's side. Compared with Jehsekhara, she believed that she could protect Lin Ya's safety. Such rhetoric made Jehsekhara dissatisfied, and the two of them dueled for this. Facts proved that Ipt was a little more powerful than Jehsekhara. She threw Jehsekhara to the ground, turned over and pressed him directly, and the dagger in her hand barely touched his throat. It was already infuriating to dress up as a woman, but he was not as strong as a woman in terms of martial arts. This realization made Jehsekhara feel terrible. Ho ha ho ho ha ho ha. Something in the darkness made a smacking sound, and Saha laughed even more happily. Jehsekhara's face turned completely black, and he let go of the oars. "What are you laughing at again?" Saha laughed so hard that he hiccuped, and gestured with his hands in front of his chest. Jehsekhara then noticed that one of his chests had shrunk. The nut snack that served as a chest fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. It was impossible to put it back, so he simply took out the other one. "Are you hungry?" "No, thank you, I'm not hungry." The moon turned into a transparent ring and gradually disappeared. The sky turned into haze blue. They drove non-stop all the way and finally arrived at the suburbs near Tanis when the sky gradually brightened. As long as they crossed a piece of sand in front of them, They could see Tanis's military camp. The couple pulling the cart exhaled clouds of white air. Lin Ya jumped off the car and fed them some water from the water bag. The stubborn donkey put his head into the food bag hanging around his neck and chewed slowly for a few times. "Your Highness. Come up quickly." Hearing Ipe's call, Lin Ya was stunned for a moment, stopped stroking the mane, and jumped onto the chariot again. The whip in Ipe's hand froze in midair and did not move. "What's wrong?" "Your Highness, it's too late." "What do you mean it's too late?" Lin Ya was confused. What was going on? "She's right, it's really too late." A deep male voice came from her ear. She looked up and saw a man in a black robe suddenly appeared nearby. The hood blocked his face, so Lin Ya could not recognize his identity. She could only see that he was tall and thin with a slender figure. He stretched out a pale hand in this direction, so Lin Ya saw 3 red marks on the back of his hand that contrasted sharply with his skin. That was the color of new flesh. It was him, the man who was scratched by Nafir when he was talking under the flower stand a few days ago. This realization made Lin Ya's heart tighten. "Sure enough, are they still chasing after us?" "Your Highness, hand over the key." The man took a few steps forward, and his low voice echoed in the wilderness. Lin Ya subconsciously tightened the edge of the box. "I don't know what you are talking about." "Your Highness, you are a very smart person, why do you have to play dumb?" He laughed softly, making people feel cold for no reason. "Didn't you always know that we are looking for something?" "I don't know." The chill spread all over her body. Lin Ya stared at his face under the hood and said coldly, "What key are they looking for?" Then she can be sure now that it is useless for them to look for it, because she has never had any key or anything like it in her hand, not even a similar shape. "You are really a liar, Your Highness. Did my pet die in your hands?" The man raised his head, revealing a pair of black eyes, like a viper staring at its prey. "Pet snake." Lin Ya almost instantly remembered the cobra she killed that day. It turned out that he had never believed that there was no one behind the flower stand. That snake was sent by him to kill himself. "Since you know, why don't you kill me yourself? Isn't it safer to do it yourself than to kill a snake?" "No, I don't know. I'm just in case." Including today, his men were sent to the water route to prepare for interception. He came here alone, waiting for that one. His luck is really good. He really waited for this one every time. But this time, there will be no mistake like the previous few days. The key will definitely be in his hands and then presented to the greatest majesty. "Your Highness, please hand over the key." He opened his palm to Lin Ya. "What if I say no? You are a royal family after all. I don't want to kill you. I hope you will cooperate with me," he said softly. The girl in front of him is the daughter of the great Hyksos Herod, one of the only 2 great Hyksos in the world. She is his loyal royal family for generations and the blood stain on his hands that cannot be stained. "How can I guarantee that what you say is true? Maybe if I keep the key, I can live longer." As she spoke, she secretly gathered her strength and winked at Ipe beside her. "Your Highness. Don't force me. Although you are a royal family, my master's blood is purer than yours." Chapter 227 I miss you so much. "The key is in the box, you must take it." She smiled slightly, dragged the box with one hand, and threw it into the distance under the man's eager eyes. Luckily, she threw it at least 10 meters away, and it kept rolling happily down the slope, running in the opposite direction of her current direction. "You better not lie to me." The man hesitated for a while between the box and the girl in front of him, and decisively chose the former, turned around and ran over quickly. I took the opportunity to whip the chariot and galloped again. The rabbit and the stubborn donkey may have also felt the seriousness of the situation and ran very fast. The chariot brought a cloud of dust behind it and soon ran to a safe area. From this position, the outline of Tanis's camp can be seen, a circle of fences in the sand, and tents one after another. Dark soldiers are working inside, and the sound of forging weapons can be heard from such a distance. There were already guards patrolling nearby. An unfamiliar chariot appeared in sight, with 2 people standing on it. The 2 soldiers looked at each other, raised their spears, and ran over quickly. "Who are you?" "The military camp is not accessible." With a spear in front of her, Lin Ya pulled down the scarf on her face to block the wind and sand. "I am the princess of His Highness Amónhotep. Is His Highness okay?" The 2 soldiers looked at each other, both with puzzled expressions. It was heard that His Highness married a princess and was very favored, but no one had ever seen the princess. Is this person in front of them real? No, no one dared to recognize her. Any token? Token? Lin Ya was stunned. She really had nothing to take out as a token. She thought jewelry was too heavy and often didn't wear it. Now she had to go out urgently. Where could she find something to prove who she was? Well, I don't have it. Why don't you take me to him? If Amónhotep is not available now, Thutmose will do. They all know me. The two soldiers still shook their heads. No, what if he is not? If he is not, the distance is too close enough for His Highness and the general to be assassinated. This loophole cannot be opened. No matter what she said, it would not work. Lin Ya gritted her teeth and cut off a section of her long hair with a dagger. This should be able to prove herself. The soldiers passed the hair around, and one of them grabbed the hair again and ran towards the direction of the military camp. Is your highness at the front line or in the military camp? I took this time to ask the soldiers who stayed behind, in the military camp. I nodded to Lin Ya. Fortunately, he did not miss it. Are you injured? This is confidential. The soldier shut up and did not answer no matter how I asked in a roundabout way. This answer made Lin Ya's heart tighten. Does his not answer mean that Aksha is really injured? Dust billowed on the road ahead, and a horse galloped over. She felt relieved immediately. The man on the horse was the boy she had been thinking about. It was not quite accurate to call him a boy. He had not combed his hair for a long time. His green stubble spread all over his cheeks and chin, and he looked like a modern Arab. His hair was a little longer, no longer shoulder length as I remembered, but reached the position of his shoulder blades. The wind and sun for many days made him look very rough. He was no longer a boy, but a real man. The distance between the military camp and here was only less than 200 cubits, but Amónhotep was unwilling to wait even a moment longer, and rode the fastest horse in the camp to come. God knows how anxious he was when he received the strand of hair that was completely broken. The color and the familiar smell on it made him recognize the owner instantly. He thought that the enemy had kidnapped Lin Ya, and rushed out without listening to the soldier finish his words. When he saw that the man was safe and sound, the strings in his heart instantly faltered. The wound burst during this short journey, but he deliberately ignored it. When a trace of blood seeped through the bandage, he finally felt the pain, but he didn't even frown. He walked straight over and hugged Lin Ya down from under the chariot. The little woman in his arms screamed, "Are you injured? Put me down." She didn't dare to move, fearing that if she moved too much, she would touch his wound again. She could only hope that he would put her down, but he didn't expect that he would not only not do it, but hugged her even tighter. "If you don't move, I'll be fine." Amónhotep smiled softly, turned his head to ask about the fragrance coming from her body, and seemed to be in a very good mood. But no buts. He kissed the hair lightly and sighed in ecstasy. "Yeah, I miss you so much. I miss you like crazy." Because of this, he was eager to attack the fortress of Sherahan, but he didn't expect to be hit by someone accidentally. His Highness Amónhotep brought back a woman from outside the military camp. It was hard to see what she looked like. The woman buried her head in his chest. No trace of her face could be seen. Only a very beautiful chestnut hair fluttered in the wind, forming an arc that made people think. In front of him was the military camp. There were so many people inside. This posture didn't seem to be good for his image, but he insisted on not letting himself go. Lin Ya could only shrink his head and try to reduce his presence as much as possible. Fortunately, they soon arrived at the main tent. The door curtain fell, completely blocking the more or less inquiring eyes from outside. The decoration inside was simple, with a long table, a roll of straw mat, a wooden box containing military orders, a low palm mat bed, and a wooden pillow that didn't look very comfortable. On the sand beside the ground was a marching map, with straw sticks to draw the terrain, mountains and tributaries of the Nile River. A straw stick was deeply inserted into the sand, with a big cross drawn on it, which was the location of Sherahan. He put Lin Ya down and gently placed her on the bed beside him, and then she cried out in pain pitifully. The bandage had long been stained with blood, and even the outer hooded shirt was stained with blood. Lin Ya felt very distressed, but couldn't bear to blame him. She looked at him with a reproachful look and reached out to help him take off his upper body clothes. It can be seen that he came out in a hurry, and his clothes were messy. The places that should be worn inside were now exposed. He didn't even tie his belt, and the knot on the bandage was not tied tightly, but loose. In fact, it was true. When the soldier came to him with his hair, the military doctor was bandaging him. Before he finished, He just threw on some clothes and ran out. Fortunately, he was wrong. The bandages were untied one by one, revealing the wound. Lin Ya's tears fell instantly. The wound was very large. The whole shoulder was bruised and purple, with blood holes on it. It was obvious that he was injured by a weapon like a mace. The terrible thing was that there was more than one such wound. He had other wounds on his body, knife wounds, axe wounds, and arrow wounds. Obviously, there were no such wounds before. How long did it take for him to be injured like this? Most of the wounds were not new. Some had healed and new flesh had grown, leaving only a faint mark. Some had formed brown scabs, like the devil's claws on his body. Her fingers touched his wounds in the air. Even though they had healed, she still didn't dare to touch them. Tears fell from her eyes drop by drop. How painful must it be? Why didn't he ever say anything? Amónhotep was now in a state of regret, very regretful. He just wanted to act like a spoiled child to make her feel sorry for him, but he didn't expect to make her cry. It doesn't hurt, it really doesn't hurt. He panicked, and helplessly stretched out a finger to poke his wound, and another trickle of blood came out, which made Lin Ya scream and frantically search for bandages and medicine in the room. Amónhotep looked at her helplessly. She was concentrating on searching for things, and her forehead was covered with fine and dense sweat. The hair on her forehead was wet with sweat, and it stuck to her face, but she didn't even move to brush it. This will be uncomfortable, he thought blankly, then walked forward to pick up the hair on her face and gently pinned it behind her ear. Go back and sit down. Okay, Ya is so fierce, but what can I do? Even so, he still likes her very much, sweeter than honey. Amónhotep, woo, Ya is fierce to me, choked up. Lin Ya, hold it back. Shut up. Let you show off. Let you move around. Poke. Happy Chinese Valentine's Day. Abba, I should have added more chapters, but time doesn't allow. I want to go out, I'll run away first. Once again, I'm thanking the baby for her votes, Trojan horse. I wish all the babies a happy Chinese Valentine's Day, and may every day be sweet! Exclamation mark. Here I'll show you a cuckoo, not lonely, not lonely, not lonely, not lonely, not lonely. Chapter 228, The Pretty Princess. Facts have proved that like husband, like wife. Looking at his shoulder which was wrapped in a thick layer of wound, Amónhotep didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yeah, it doesn't hurt, it really doesn't hurt. He lied with a normal expression. You are lying compared with him. Lin Ya's tears never stopped. Only after seeing it, you know how bad the wound is. The spikes on the mace pierced into his flesh for a full centimeter, and the skin and flesh were turned inside out. When he was bandaged just now, his upper body was stiff. Even in this situation, you still say it doesn't hurt? Yeah, my wound is nothing. This is war. He sighed softly, pulled her over to sit beside him, stretched out a hand to hold her in his arms, and rubbed her hair with his chin. There are many soldiers like me on the front line of Sharuhan. Some of them have the same wounds as me, and some are more serious. Many more will stay in foreign lands forever, and their souls will never be freed and redeemed. His wound is really good. Many people will die on the battlefield due to wound infection and other factors, even if their injuries are lighter than his. I don't care about other people. I am really a very selfish person. I just hope you are fine and come back to me well. She choked and cried even harder. Amónhotep paused, without saying anything, but used a little force in his hand to hold the person in his arms tighter. On the front battlefield, countless people fell beside him, his own and the enemy's. Death was always shrouding the entire battlefield. He was still alive and could come back to see her. This was good, really good. There was a slight stubble on his chin, which made her hair tangled up. She raised her head, pressed his chin, pulled Amónhotep's head down a little, pinched his cheeks, and shook it left and right. How long have you not shaved? You must be a fake Aksha. My Aksha doesn't look like this. Lin Ya sniffed and brought up a lighter topic. Well, not long. He rubbed his stubble-covered chin and cheeks against her while talking, causing her to resist slightly with a little disgust. It really wasn't long, it was just that he didn't shave early in the morning. In fact, his beard grew very fast because he shaved frequently. It was just that she came too early in the morning and she was a little impatient, so she saw herself like this. So ugly. She pouted, and tried to dodge back a few times but failed to avoid his attack. She resigned herself to her fate and let the chin like a steel ball rub against her cheek. Is it ugly? Amónhotep was stunned, with a blank look in his eyes. It seemed that it was a little ugly. When had he ever seen people in this image? The delicate cheeks were shaved with a little bright red color. Before Lin Ya could resist, he was so distressed that he could not move. I will shave it off in a while. Lin Ya smiled softly and kissed his delicate chin. In fact, it is not that ugly. It is quite good looking. There is a hint of mature man. Her boy is no longer a boy. The separation for many days made Amónhotep's eyes turn red. Even this degree of contact made him feel a kind of teasing. Yeah. He kissed Lin Ya's forehead unbearably, and the clear voice at the corner of his mouth became low and hoarse and full of temptation. Your injury. Lin Ya instantly saw through his thoughts, and her voice became much softer. She put her hands on his chest and her face was as red as a ripe apple. Nothing. He missed her, really missed her. It's still daytime. Nothing. She couldn't say no anymore. The man's lips kissed hers heavily, shutting down everything she hadn't said yet. She didn't need to ask anything, didn't need to think about anything. Just having him in her world was enough, just saying yes. Your Highness. Outside the tent, one of Amónhotep's assistants was about to lift the half-closed curtain when he was knocked down by another man. What do you mean? Don't go in. God, Amon is above, it's a good word. The man pursed his lips and pointed behind the curtain. Your Highness brought a woman back this morning. You mean? Just what you think. The wind stopped and the rain stopped. Lin Ya pointed at Amónhotep's smooth chin with a trembling finger, so angry that she couldn't speak. Why did he get what he wanted and then turn around and become a spirited and handsome young man, and make himself look like this? The bandage on his shoulder was removed a little, leaving only a thin layer. The stubble on his face had just been shaved off, and he had returned to his usual appearance, smooth and delicate. Seeing Lin Ya pointing at him, he leaned down and kissed the green fingertips, his eyes flickering with spring light. Damn it. Yeah, what's wrong with me? Innocent face. You. Lin Ya gritted her teeth in hatred and pulled the sheet up a little to cover the red marks on her neck. Didn't you ask me to shave your chin? Amónhotep was speechless. He had agreed to something casually on the bed, but she actually took it seriously. Thinking of the last time he shaved his legs, how could he really dare to let her shave him? Last time, not many people paid attention to his legs, but now it's his face. What if it becomes like that again? How can he face people and still have any prestige? This. It's already shaved. No matter how angry she is, she won't have a beard to shave. Fortunately. This pillow is uncomfortable. What a rubbish, so high, and made of wood, it hurts so much. Lin Ya gritted her teeth and started to find fault. Okay, I'll ask someone to change it for you later. But he was still in a good mood, with a smile on his face, nodding and agreeing to whatever she said. The bed is uncomfortable too. Change it too. I don't like the sand on the ground either. I'll ask someone to clear it out. Then I think you're annoying too. So annoying. He didn't even say anything when he was injured. There were both new and old wounds on his body. It can be imagined that he had been injured many days ago, but he still didn't say anything in the letter. He was not allowed to move, but he had to move. The wound was broken and he was still thinking about this. Aksha is a bastard. This can't be changed. He stopped smiling at this time, and his long and curled eyelashes fluttered gently, revealing a bit of lovable taste. Don't even think about replacing me. He came over very naturally and kissed her face again. What else can I say? Then I'll braid your hair. Lin Ya pouted and lifted the hair on his shoulders with her fingers. The soft hairpin was between her fingers and formed into a small fan. It's so long now. His hair really grew, long and straight to the position of his shoulder blades, but it didn't look feminine, just handsome. Okay. He agreed obediently. There shouldn't be any accidents when tying hair, right? It won't be like shaving legs, right? After a moment, he felt a little regretful. The fact that she could tie her hair made her lively again, and she turned around and searched for hair bands in his makeup box. Finally, she picked out a long red ribbon and pressed him to the seat. The ivory comb brushed across his scalp. Thinking that the person who was combing his hair was his beloved wife, his heart was filled with infinite tenderness. Yea was so nice that she combed his hair. He thought dizzily and didn't even notice the mirror opposite. Feeling a chill on the back of his neck, Amónhotep sobered up instantly. Seeing the hairstyle in the mirror, he panicked. His hair was tied up on top of his head into a ponytail. This was not a big deal. This hairstyle was also okay. The terrible thing was that at the front of his head, she tied it into a big standard bow. The butterfly wings were long and hung on both sides. If the little girl had this hairstyle, it would probably look very nice and cute. But I am not a man. Yeah, have you forgotten? Lin Ya, my husband is so handsome, pulling the bow with satisfaction. Amónhotep, huh? Is he really handsome? Pointing fingers, yeah, good looking. Very good looking. Baji. Chapter 229 Stone. After enough nonsense, Lin Ya snuggled in his arms, and the two talked about what happened recently. After you left, I found a spy in the palace, she said while being dishonest, reaching out to pull the red bow on his head. God must have treated people differently when he created them, right? He must have been in a very good mood when he created Aksha. Why is he still so good looking even with a girl's hairstyle? Like a delicate and cute doll, with these eyes and eyelashes, her little husband is so handsome that even she wants to turn into a wolf when she sees him. It seems that I have to be on guard not only against women but also men in the future. Spy? Amónhotep's eyebrows frowned instantly. Instead of asking who it was, he anxiously turned Lin Ya over and over. Are you okay? Why did you deal with it? Why didn't you write to tell me about this? I'll deal with it when I get back. How can you be so reckless? He shook Lin Ya so hard that she felt dizzy. All she could see in her eyes was his long, drooping bow, swaying in her eyes. Oh, I'm sure I'm fine. Besides, don't you know if you were hurt just now? She grumbled in dissatisfaction, thinking of what happened just now, and pulled his hair again. How come his hair was so good, soft and smooth, like the silk quilt he had slept on before? It seemed that there was no injury, but that didn't delay it. I didn't see it just now, otherwise it would be the same if I looked at it now. Amónhotep began to act like a hooligan in a serious manner, and only a hint of charm in his eyes betrayed him. Go away, let's talk business. Her hands played with his hair, playing with it strand by strand. You also know that spy. I wasn't sure it was her at first. I know her. There was a little doubt and self-blame in his eyes. How could such a dangerous existence appear under his nose? If such a hidden danger was removed before he left, wouldn't it be discovered by Ya, and she wouldn't face such risks? Oh, even if you came into contact with it, you wouldn't find it. You have so many things to deal with every day, how could you notice such a thing? Lin Ya knew what he was thinking as soon as she saw his expression. She stretched out her fingers and pressed the knot between his eyebrows, pressing down the knot that was raised because of frowning, and then pressing it down again. I'm not teasing you. It was my personal maid Amónhotep. How could you think it was her? If he really paid attention to Amónhotep, he would drive himself crazy. He had so many things to deal with, and he saw men every day. How could he have time to study his maid? What if he really studied it? How did you find out? He held her hand, with a little worry in his eyes. Even if it was so, he didn't do well enough. He didn't even check the details of such a close person before putting him next to Ya. The purpose of the spy was self-evident. If she really had something wrong, what should he do? So Lin Ya followed him and told him what happened after he left bit by bit. Of course, she didn't say much about the thrilling things like killing the cobra, so as not to worry him. But who is Amónhotep? He quickly found the loophole in the words. How did you find out about their secret conversation? I found out while hiding in the side. The flower stand. Yes, the flower stand. There is no place to hide next to the flower stand. You are lying. Yeah. Okay. In the bushes under the flower stand bushes. Amónhotep raised his eyebrows. What were you doing in the bushes? How could she say such a shameless thing? She was annoyed and fierce and covered his mouth with her hands. Why are you asking so many questions? Do you still want to listen to me? He couldn't speak, but just blinked his eyes. His long eyelashes flickered, innocent to death. Listen. It was a muffled sound made by the blocked mouth. Puff, a ball of hot air blew on the palm of her hand, and his muffled words made Lin Ya laugh. When did he ever talk like this? He always had a normal and positive image. So when he was with someone who was not normal like her, would a normal person change his style? After everything was explained, Amónhotep's face was so dark that it was unbearable to look at. He hugged Lin Ya tightly in fear, and the dark clouds in his eyes almost condensed into substance. Why are you so stupid? You came just because she said I was injured. He almost shouted when he said this, and his hands became tighter and tighter. Lin Ya felt that her bones were about to be crushed by him. Did she come just like that? Just because someone said she was injured? How could she be so stupid? And she was killed by someone? If she wasn't so smart, would he have lost her just like that? And then one day, the patrolling guards came to that place and found her bones on the sand. Did they throw them away as if it was an ordinary trivial matter? Just thinking about such a scene, Amónhotep felt suffocated. She was still alive, she was in front of him, her breathing was gentle, and her body was warm. Who told you not to write to me for several days? I didn't receive your letter for several days. I thought. After being yelled at by him, Lin Ya felt wronged, but still couldn't say the words something happened. He would write a letter to her every day, and the longest would not be 1 day apart. Suddenly, there was no news for 5 consecutive days. Did he know how anxious and panicked he was? Since receiving this news, although she knew in her heart that Amónhotep was most likely lying and trying to trick her out, she couldn't help but think about it. Her right eyelid kept twitching, and she couldn't sleep every day and night. When she closed her eyes, he would appear in front of her with blood dripping. She was almost going crazy from being tortured by this dream. She didn't want to stay there and wait for the true or false news from him anymore, so she came. However, Amónhotep didn't lie. He was really injured. He was injured a lot when she didn't know. She can still remember the crisscrossing scars on his body. She didn't know how painful it was for him to be injured. Just looking at her made her scalp numb. I really don't feel that much pain. Just a little bit, just a little bit. As he was talking, his little wife started crying again, tears falling silently. He wiped the tears from her face in a panic. I wrote you a letter, really wrote it. He had been injured for several days, and it was much more serious a few days ago than it is now, and he could hardly write. It was because of this uncontrollable thing that he didn't dare to say that he had written a full box of letters before, and asked his adjutant to send 1 letter a day when he couldn't send messages. But he didn't expect that his letters were hidden by someone, and he lied to his wife that there were no letters, so he tricked Lin Ya to come. Lin Ya was not stupid when he said that. In connection with what happened before, she guessed a little bit of the truth. Amónhotep and the man in black probably knew that he had eavesdropped on their secrets, and they were already on guard, so they wanted to trick him out to get what they wanted outside. If she didn't bring it with her, then Amónhotep would look for it after she left. If she brought it with her, it would be a good opportunity to stage an ambush. The nails buried in the palace could still be used, and no one would know who killed her in the wilderness. Who made her run away secretly? What do you think the key they are looking for is for? Lin Ya was still very confused. Key? What key? Why did they think it was on her? But how could she, the person involved, not know that she had such a thing? All her boxes were unlocked. If there was a key, she only had one, which was the key to the courtyard in Kenshin. What was the use of it? It was obvious that it would not be this. Who knows? It's probably something very important to them. Did you see what the man looked like? He paused and asked again. There are many, many keys in this world. Without a pointing premise, no one would know what it is used for. I don't know. He wore a big cloak. I can only see that he is a tall and thin man. Lin Ya thought about it, with a confused look on her face. That man was really too mysterious, and even his voice was not real. But I think he should be furious now. Huh? I brought 2 empty boxes with me on purpose. They are filled with stones. She was right. When the man crawled down the hillside without caring about his image and picked up the box, he was so angry that his nose was crooked. Tia, you are fine. You are really fine. You are worthy of being one of the only 2 great Hyksos in the world. I am waiting for our next meeting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230, The Treasure of the Hyksos. By the way, they might be Sharuhan. Thinking hard about what other features that person had, she suddenly remembered the Sharuhan they talked about in their secret conversation that day. Isn't this the city that Aksha and his men are attacking now? Sharuhan. Yes, that man told the man who looked like Amónhotep at the time to think about your relatives in Sharuhan before doing anything, so I guessed so. Amónhotep picked her up and put her on his lap, with a serious look in his eyes. Yeah, do you know what kind of people are in the town of Sharuhan? Well, I asked Shabaka before, and he said that most of the Hyksos who were expelled stayed there. Lin Ya thought about it and answered like this. Shabaka said at the time that it was the border of the kingdom, and the Hyksos were now gathered there, determined to restore their country. Yes, the people who live in Sharohenli are all evil Hyksos from West Asia. Speaking of the word evil, he paused, as if he remembered something, and his expression was dazed. I think I know what key they are looking for. His voice became a little hoarse, and every word he said seemed to be squeezed out. Huh? What is it? This sentence made Lin Ya feel a little excited, and she asked with interest, how can Aksha be so smart? He guessed it with just a few clues. His fingers were a little stiff, and he stroked Lin Ya's hair again and again. His rough fingertips hooked a little hair. His voice seemed to come from the edge of the clouds, revealing a faint feeling. Legend has it that the Hyksos left a treasure in West Asia, which is full of gold. Jade covered the ground, and various jewels were placed like mountains. It is much more than the sum of the wealth of all the lands in Kemet. More importantly, some people say that if you get it, you can become the owner of all the lands under the sun. Ah! Is there really so much wealth? When it comes to money, Lin Ya's eyes lit up. They are looking for the key in their hands. Does it mean that they are now the closest to the answer? Who in the world doesn't love money? So now there is a chance that I will become the richest person in the world? I don't know, but based on the last sentence of the legend, my father deduced that this treasure might contain methods to strengthen weapons, or more advanced weapons. Oh, then I'm not interested. Lin Ya thought this treasure was boring. What's so fun about weapons? Silly. He sighed. This is something that the Hyksos must not get. If they really get it, they will come back again. The regular flooding of the Nile brought the splendid civilization of Kemet and a highly developed civilized society. Perhaps it was because it was too stable that weapons were not well developed in the pre-kingdom era. It was not until the Hyksos stepped over the wall of rulers and opened the door to Kemet with tough means that they realized that they were not always the strong side in this world. The Hyksos chariots, composite bows, sickles, and powerful scimitars were all things that the Kemet people never had. Chariots ran much faster than human feet. They rushed into the crowd and killed a large number of people in an instant. The sickles were sharp and it was effortless to split the straw shields, just like breaking a piece of fragile paper. They easily conquered the northern land with such advanced weapons, while Amónhotep's ancestors stubbornly held on to the south. But it could only be like this. The north was the Hyksos and the south was Nubia. The enemy was in a dilemma. He could neither advance nor retreat. It was not until later that his ancestors got wise and began to imitate the weapon styles of the Hyksos and learn their war culture. Finally, they defeated them with their weapons. The treasure of the Hyksos has always been a big worry in his father's heart. Their previous weapons were so advanced. If they evolved again, no one could predict which side would be the winner next time. And his descendants, will there be such an opportunity to hit the Hyksos again? Your Highness, the voice of an adjutant came from outside the door, interrupting Amónhotep's thoughts. He responded and signaled that he could enter. A burly man lifted the curtain and strode in. He knew the situation in the tent clearly. He just looked down at the ground without raising his head. Even so, Lin Ya still felt a little uncomfortable and jumped off Amónhotep's legs. They were obviously going to talk about military affairs. The adjutant didn't speak, and it seemed that he was waiting for her to leave. Where are the friends who came with me? Lin Ya asked him. There was no other way. If she didn't find Ipt, there were only men in this military camp. Where could she go if she went out? Miss, my only wife? Seeing that the adjutant was hesitant because he didn't know what to call her, Amónhotep introduced her directly. Ah, Your Highness, your friend is in another tent. 2 people just arrived here. They are the captain of the guards of the Memphis Palace and your Highness's personal attendant Saha. Huh? Shabaka and the others are here too. Yes, my people are outside. I will arrange for them to take you to look for her. Besides, your Highness's beloved rider is giving birth now because of the long journey. What? The stubborn donkey is giving birth. Lin Ya was already a little restless when she heard that Shabaka and the others had arrived. They were dragged out because of her, and she encountered danger when she walked by land. She didn't know how they were doing, whether they were robbed or killed, or if they were injured. However, due to her jealous nature, she would be so jealous if she heard that she cared about other men, so she held it back and didn't show it in such a hurry. Now she heard that the stubborn donkey was giving birth, so she went straight out the door. Fortunately, she was still concerned about the presence of outsiders here, so she had to pay attention to her image, otherwise she would have run away long ago. When she reached the door, she stopped again. Aksha, when you're done, will you go too? The product of a donkey and a horse should be quite novel. Well, you go first, I'll be there in a while. He smiled at her soothingly, so she went out obediently. After reporting on the military affairs at the front line, there was nothing important left. The adjutant saluted and was about to leave, but was stopped by Amónhotep. He looked at the adjutant up and down with a heavy gaze, which made the adjutant a little confused. Your Highness. What do you want? Dare, you are my most trusted subordinate. Yes, I am your most loyal subordinate. Can I trust you? He looked at Dare with a look of scrutiny in his eyes. God Amon, I am someone you can always trust. Facing Amónhotep's gaze, Dare knelt down directly, pious and firm. I want you to go back to Thebes secretly and investigate Rhea's life. He paused, and then continued, find out who his first wife was. Yes. Rhea is the father-in-law of His Highness, and His Highness is now going to investigate his father-in-law's past. Obviously, there is something hidden in it, but Dare should only claim that the reason here should not be known by him. Dare, you just need to investigate quietly. No matter what the result is, no third person can know about this. The ever-great god Osiris, I will do everything your Highness asks. If I can't keep a secret for your Highness, then my soul will be forever silent in darkness. Go. After saying this, looking at Dare's back as he walked away, he seemed to be very tired, leaning back on the chair, breathing softly. According to legend, the token containing the map of the Hyksos treasure has been placed in the temple of Astarte in Avaris. The key was kept by the chief priest there for generations. The last chief priest of the temple of Astarte was the beloved daughter of King Apophis, Princess Herod. However, she disappeared in a certain year of the War of Expulsion, and disappeared without a sound. Only her name was left in the Hyksos folk. It seems that the hidden treasure token also disappeared with her, because until the end of the War of Expulsion, the Hyksos were beaten without any ability to fight back, and they did not take out one of the treasures. After realizing this, Amos finally let go of his fists and feet, leaving no more strength, and conquered Avaris in one fell swoop. How could those Hyksos people find Yea to look for such a key? There is only one possibility. Yea is related to the disappeared Herod. Rhea's ruthlessness to his wife and daughter, and his repeated confirmation of the words, Amónhotep has never been so powerless. He dare not think about this possibility, really dare not think about it. Chapter 231 Love Across Species. Shabaka and the others were fine, and basically didn't suffer any injuries. They were much more agile than Lin Ya and the others. Knowing clearly that they had nothing in their hands, Saha readily gave the box to them. After getting the box, the other party didn't make it difficult for them. Perhaps they had received instructions that there was no need to hurt Lin Ya. When Lin Ya came out of their tent, she heard Saha, the big mouth, chattering with Shabaka behind her back, we are fine, but it seems that it has caused some bad influence on Her Royal Highness the Princess. This sentence successfully stopped Lin Ya in her tracks, and she turned back to look at Saha with a smile. What image are you talking about? This smile made Saha feel a little dangerous, and he swallowed awkwardly. No. Nothing. Shabaka, you say? Yes. Shabaka ignored Saha's pitiful look and spoke directly. They said that His Royal Highness's eyes for choosing women are not very good. The princess is a little ugly and timid. She threw the things away before they could do anything. Well, this is not Saha's fault. Next time this happens, I will find someone who looks better to replace me. As for the others, what can I do? If I don't give them, will they be killed? Outside the tent are soldiers, some of whom were recruited from the country, and some of whom were mercenaries from Nubia. They came from Nubia and gained wealth and status in Kemet through war. Many of them successfully squeezed into the upper class of Kemet and became generals in charge of one side or some managers of the army. Nubians are natural archers. Their strong arms make their range farther, and they are an indispensable part of the Kemet army. But there is one thing, because of their identity, they are destined not to be truly trusted and valued. The officer who sent Lin Ya and Ike to find Shabaka was a Nubian, and his identity was actually easy to distinguish. First of all, his skin is dark, with a head of thick and curly hair, which is only a little different from modern black people. He introduced himself as Neferhopi. In order to integrate into the society of Kemet, he even changed his name to one that used the god of Kemet as a component. Beautiful Happy. But even so, he was still not taken seriously. In the army, besides being an archer, he could only do some odd jobs. Hearing that Lin Ya was the princess of Amónhotep, His attitude was extremely enthusiastic and humble, and he perfected every detail. Coming out of Shabaka's tent, Neferhopi led Lin Ya to find the rabbit and the stubborn donkey that had been placed there. Along the way, he told them about their current situation. The veterinarian in the army felt that the mare was about to give birth. Even if it hadn't happened today, she would have given birth sooner or later. This kind of exercise will make it give birth more smoothly. You don't have to worry too much, he said comforting words as he walked. Lin Ya was indeed a little worried. If there was no other way, she would not want to use the stubborn donkey to walk such a long distance. She knew it was about to give birth. The veterinarian in the palace said that the pregnancy period of a horse is about 11 months, but since it is a donkey, he doesn't know how long it will take, but it will not exceed this. It's only been about 10 months now. If a person gives birth prematurely, it should be dangerous. I wonder what will happen to the horse? Neferhopi's words did make her feel a little relieved, but she couldn't help but think about it. After all, the stubborn donkey was Aksha's favorite mount. He valued it very much, otherwise he wouldn't have kept it in the palace. It wasn't a regular species, it was pregnant with a mule, and it was unknown whether this would affect its production. Your Highness, don't worry. There may not be hybrids of donkeys and horses in the palace or among the people, but there have been precedents in the army. It's always smoother for a female horse to give birth than a female donkey. What he said was true. There were not many horses in the folk now. Horses were rare. It was impossible to keep them together with donkeys in the palace. But it was different in the army. The transportation capacity of donkeys was there, and they were widely used in the army. They had similar habits to horses, and sometimes they were raised in the wild. The fact that they could reproduce with each other also happened in the army, but for the purebred bloodline of horses, the probability of such a thing happening was very low. Lin Ya was relieved after hearing this. It turned out that mules had been around for a long time. Just as Neferhopi said, the mule was very hard-working and gave birth very smoothly. When Lin Ya and the others arrived, it was already over. The mule was a little premature, but that didn't stop it from standing up to suckle. It had plenty of strength to suckle. It had the same black fur as the mule, the long ears of the rabbit, and its 4 hooves were snow white. It looked pretty good. The rabbit was a responsible husband. Although it was just an animal, it knew how to protect its spouse and newborn cubs. It stood aside and looked around vigilantly. The veterinarian who delivered the baby said that he was almost kicked over by a hoof. This discouraged Lin Ya from wanting to take a closer look. From the rabbit's appearance, she knew that her owner was no longer valuable. She probably wouldn't give him a good look if she went. There was the sound of footsteps on the sand behind her. She smiled as she smelled the fresh mint in the air. She skillfully pulled Amónhotep's hand and clasped it around her waist. She found a comfortable angle in his arms and leaned against him. Are you done? His body was stiff, but it softened the moment she leaned over. He naturally hugged her and rested his chin on the top of her head. Yes. Look at this newborn baby. How cute. Have you seen a cross-species baby born from a donkey and a horse? Lin Ya was in high spirits. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at the little mule. The newborn mule's eyes hadn't fully opened yet, but it could already stand up and look for milk by itself. It made a humming sound while eating, and it was very strong. Yes, I've seen it. There were mules like this in the army. This is a cross-species product. When he mentioned the word cross-species, his voice paused. Crossing species also crosses races. Yes, the rabbit and the stubborn donkey have a great relationship. She spoke in a brisk tone, but her voice became lower and sad. That's right. The little mule will never have its own offspring. It can't give birth. Maybe it's because it's a punishment from God for crossing species. Because it's a punishment from God for crossing species. This sentence made Amónhotep's pupils shrink instantly. Clouds rolled in his eyes. All his thoughts were torn apart by this sentence. Punishment for crossing species. What about crossing races? For example, the Kemet and the Hyksos. The hatred between these two races is deeper than the sea at the end of the sky. The arm on her waist slowly stiffened, but she didn't feel it at all. Her voice returned to a brisk tone. But who cares? Being together is the best ending, and who can say they are not happy? Her voice came into Amónhotep's ears one by one, and his thoughts drifted away little by little. Yes, who can say they are not happy? The few months with Ale were the best months of his life. It was the first time that he felt that there was such a beautiful emotion in the world, which made him feel concerned and felt that he was living in the world all the time. Now everything is uncertain. She may not really be a Hyksos. Maybe Herod has nothing to do with her, or maybe it was just a coincidence that the Hyksos found her. In any case, he is sure of his heart. He is willing to be loyal to it. His heart clearly tells himself that he is unwilling to let go of this hard-won warmth and never want to return to loneliness. If a person takes bitter medicine all his life, there is nothing special. But if one day, someone gives him a candy, he eats the candy in his mouth and tastes the sweet taste. How can he be willing to go back and drink the bitter medicine? He is in this mood now. Even if this happiness is destined to be a momentary scene, he will change this ending and hold it firmly in his palm. He lowered his head, ignored her slight resistance, and kissed her lips lingeringly. Yeah, no matter what, I will always protect you. Chapter 232 Adonis. Lin Ya's sudden disappearance caused a stir in the palace. If Shabaka had not been more cautious and informed his subordinates in advance, there might have been a big incident now. The disappearance of the princess was not a trivial matter. Even Nefertita, who had never cared much about anything, was alarmed and rushed back and forth. When they left the next afternoon, the subordinate estimated that they had arrived and notified others. In any case, the Memphis palace was now in a state of being ownerless. Shabaka completed the task and reported to Amónhotep the recent events in the palace. That afternoon, he set off on the return journey in a chariot pulled by 2 fast horses. Lin Ya stayed behind. She would stay here until Amónhotep recovered from his injury and returned to the front line. This was Amónhotep's wish and hers. For a couple in love, this separation of nearly a month was such a difficult experience. Every opportunity to be together was so precious. Actually, she wanted to go back with Shabaka at first, because she was afraid that staying here would distract him. But he wouldn't let her leave. Amónhotep said, "If you go back, I will be more worried." What happened in the palace left him with lingering fears. She was not in front of him, so he would always worry about her safety. Lin Ya felt that his attitude was a little strange recently. He was almost obedient and gave her everything she wanted. Even the ponytail hairstyle with a big bow was tied for several days under her coquetry. Of course, it was only limited to her. The delicious fish he mentioned in the letter was really delicious. It was fat and had few bones. It was delicious just roasted. It was even more delicious when smeared with the honey that was beaten by Thutmose last time. Lin Ya remembered what Amónhotep described about Thutmose at that time when she ate. His original words were like this: his face was swollen to too big, and he couldn't even see his eyes. He looked like a pig kept in a military camp. The sun shone on the sparkling water, casting a golden glow. As the boat passed by a treetop that had just emerged from the water, Lin Ya stretched out her arms to pick a goose yellow flower on it. However, her arms were too short, and she couldn't reach the treetops even if she stretched them straight. She had to lean forward, with most of her body sticking out of the boat. The shift in her center of gravity, coupled with the fact that she was originally on an unstable boat, made her lose her balance. As her nose tip was about to come into close contact with the water, her fear of water took over, and she subconsciously closed her eyes. It was over, I was going to die. A big hand appeared on her waist, pulling her out of the danger of falling into the water. She heard the clear voice of a young boy in her ears, with a little helplessness. "What do you want? Is it that?" After surviving the disaster, she patted her chest, took a breath, and nodded blankly. Amónhotep's face was not looking good. Lin Ya felt that if he hadn't been rowing and she had to keep her balance, she would have hit her head right now. But when he spoke, it was not a word of blame, but he turned around to pick the yellow flower for himself. The boy's arms were much longer than hers, and he easily picked the flower she wanted. He even seemed to think it was not enough for her, and roughly broke off the entire branch. The flowers were full on the branch. He held the branch between his fingers and handed it to her, vaguely blocking his face. The yellow flower and the green leaves were just right in beauty, but still not as beautiful as his eyebrows. "Why don't you take it?" He raised an eyebrow and looked over. The red hairband was blown up by the wind and hit the branch, blending with the goose yellow flowers. She reached out to take it, and took the opportunity to touch his bony hand. "It's really beautiful. Yet, it's just that it's not in bloom yet. It will be more beautiful when it blooms in a while." He picked up the organ and responded with a faint smile. "No, I'm not talking about this kind of beauty." She looked at him through the gaps between the petals, her eyes rolling around with ill intent. "I'm talking about you being beautiful." She leaned over and quickly kissed him on the cheek while he didn't react, and whispered softly in his ear, "You're much more beautiful than the flowers." No matter how beautiful the flowers are, how can they compare with you? The warm breath ironed from the roots of her ears to the tips of his ears, so he unceremoniously pulled out a hand and inserted it into her hair, pressing it heavily against himself, wantonly tasting the beauty between her lips and teeth. You are also very good looking. After a long time, until she was out of breath, he finally let go of his hand and chuckled in her ear. So we are the most compatible. She laughed and ate the tender tofu in his arms. Well, he is so good looking that even after being together for so long, she still feels very lucky and not at all. After being married for so long, Lin Ya's face is no longer so thin, or it has never been thin, but she feels embarrassed when there are people around. Amónhotep took her out to play today. They took a small sedge boat by the river of the military camp. Now on the vast river, there are only each other and the occasional water birds. She leaned in his arms, touched his hair dishonestly, and kissed his cheek. He was combed into a side ponytail by her and tied a big knot on the top of his head. In fact, if she didn't always tie such a knot for herself, this hairstyle might still be good. It can relax the back of the neck in the hot Kemet. But if it's just for her, it doesn't matter. With this thought in mind, Amónhotep obediently let her mess with his hair, but soon he felt regretful. Regret why he broke the branch for her. Lin Ya picked the flowers from the branch one by one, made a wreath, and then put it on his head steadily. Amónhotep subconsciously wanted to tear it off, but he held back. This was made by Ya herself, and he couldn't be so rude. Ya, can you take it off? I have tied a bow. Don't wear flowers anymore? His voice was soft, like a plea. She shook her head like a rattle. No, no, why don't you wear a wreath? Obviously your father wears it. Father. When did his father wear such a wreath? The statue in the Memphis palace, isn't there someone who puts a fresh wreath on it every day? She snorted unsatisfiedly, with an expression that said, don't try to fool me. Yeah, Amónhotep felt that he had no way to deal with her. Isn't that worn on the hair? Isn't that worn on the neck? No matter what, I want you to wear it, show me. She reached out to shake his arm, pointing at the reflection in the river and acting coquettishly. You look really good like this, really. The boy on the river had a neat ponytail, and a long red hairband rested on his hair like butterfly wings. The hair tied too tightly made his eyes slightly raised, with a hint of charm, but the wreath destroyed this beauty. Now is not the real flowering season, there are still few flowers, and most of them are green leaves. So when this wreath is put on, it is more appropriate to say that it is red and green rather than red and yellow. Once this idea came out and once this setting was accepted, Lin Ya could not suppress it. What is the Chinese saying? Red and green, match. Is it really so beautiful? Even so, she was still eager to tear off the wreath. After all, she had made it herself, and she was reluctant to tear it. So she changed her mind and pulled off the bow on his head. The knot on the headband was just a slip knot, and it came out with a slight pull. His hair was so smooth that it fell down immediately after it was taken off the headband, and fell neatly on his shoulders, as if it had never been tied up. The handsome boy with shoulder-length hair and the yellow and green wreath on his head reminded Lin Ya of Adonis in Greek mythology. If the legendary Adonis looked like this, it was no wonder that he was pursued by so many goddesses. If it was me, I would be willing to do it. Chapter 233 The Best Festival. Why is my husband so handsome? Lin Ya supported her chin and looked at him, sighing sincerely. No matter how long she said this, she couldn't help but say it over and over again. Is he handsome? Amónhotep didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but because of her admiration, he couldn't help but touch the wreath on his head. Handsome. Then do you love me? I love you the most. I want to be with you forever and ever. Lin Ya kissed his chin, affirmed his question, and confessed loudly. Okay, we will be together forever and ever. She seemed to say this casually, but Amónhotep did not. He took her hand almost piously, placed it on his lips and kissed it gently, his voice solemn and affectionate. He held her in his arms, and his eyes that she could not see were as deep as the sea. His Jaya was a silly child, who understood nothing and knew nothing, but it was okay like this, it couldn't be better. She just needed to live a simple life like this, even if those things were true, even if the Hyksos were really related to her, he would keep all the wind and rain out and not let anyone know about such things. He would definitely protect her, even if he felt sorry for everyone. Yeah, the Opet festival is coming. The sun set into the mountains in the west, and the papyrus boat sailed back to the shore. Amónhotep handed the boat to his subordinates who were waiting there, took her hand and walked towards the military camp together. "Yes, I know." He suddenly mentioned the Opet festival, and Lin Ya was a little confused. She knew about this matter, and she also supervised a sphinx on his behalf. It is estimated that it has already gone to Thebes. Why did he suddenly mention this? "I'm sorry," he shook her hand and said apologetically. Sorry for what?" She was completely confused. What did the Opet festival have to do with her? Why was he saying sorry? Could it be that he had someone else outside? Thinking of this, she felt so sour in her heart, and she was filled with jealousy. She forgot the previous prefix Opet festival. She raised his arm fiercely and bit it. The skin under her mouth stiffened instantly. It was painful to see the reaction. In the end, the emotion of heartache prevailed. She loosened her mouth a little and started to grind her teeth. She felt wronged. He already had someone, but she still felt so sorry for him. It was really annoying. Yeah. The sudden pain swept through his body, but he still did not make a sound of pain, only a brief question. "I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. I'm afraid I really don't have time this year." Now even if he rushed with a chariot, he couldn't get back to Thebes before the arrival of the Opet festival. Amónhotep lowered his voice and felt a little guilty. "What do you mean no time? Who is that woman?" "What woman?" They were talking at cross purposes, staring at each other, and both of them showed confused expressions at the same time. "It's the woman outside you." He was angry. "When did I have a woman outside?" What is Ya talking about?" "Then what did you say sorry for? It seems like she bit the wrong person. Didn't you say you wanted to attend the Opet festival with me this year?" Amónhotep paused and forced a helpless smile. How could he have another woman outside? He was obviously a loser. She was the only one in his eyes and heart. How could he have another woman? This. She didn't even remember how long ago it happened. It was hard for him to remember it clearly. It was probably when they first met. He said that the Opet festival was a unique event in Kemet, and the scene was much more grand and lively than all other festivals. It aroused her interest, so she invited him. What did he say at that time? He seemed very reserved. He didn't say yes or no. He just agreed vaguely. But now, she, the one who asked the question, had long forgotten it, but he still remembered it in his heart. Really, she bit the wrong person. She felt distressed and embarrassed. She stretched out her little hand to cover the tooth mark and rubbed it gently. No matter what, how could such a tooth mark disappear easily? She simply stopped rubbing it and stretched out a hand. Her thin arm was stretched in front of him, with an appearance of a hero cutting off his arm. "Or you can bite it back." "Really?" he asked with interest, with a hint of humor in his voice. "Really? Aren't you afraid of pain?" "I'm not, just be gentle." The tooth mark at the tip of her lips finally shrank back. Woo woo woo, she knew she was wrong. "Could you be gentler?" "Well, okay." He really came over, lowered his head and moved close to her arm. She closed her eyes nervously. "Are you really biting?" Question mark. The pain she was waiting for did not come. Instead, her sense of touch was magnified where he touched her. A pair of soft lips were imprinted on her arm, kissing her ambiguously. Her eyelids slightly opened a small gap, and she saw the boy looking up seriously, and a deep red kiss mark was left on her skin. "Done biting." "Does this count as biting?" "This definitely counts. It's all red." She quickly retracted her hand and saw that the boy showed a look of unsatisfied desire. "Maybe, can I take another bite?" No. The refusal was ineffective, and the boy took another bite in revenge, but this time, it was her lips. He had made enough of the trouble, and he ruffled her long hair with his backhand. "Stupid, what are you thinking? I have someone outside." Then even if I was wrong. You were wrong in the first place. I only see you every day. How could there be someone else? You're talking nonsense. How long have you been apart from me? Then I'm also in the military camp, and there are only men in the military camp. Then, what if you have a man outside? She pouted, making trouble unreasonably. Men. Amónhotep laughed out loud because of her anger, looking at her lips viciously. "Didn't you think about my sexual orientation just now? Why don't we go back and discuss it slowly? I still have many ways to prove to you whether I have other people outside or not." Although she felt a little dangerous looking at his expression, she still insisted. "I think Thutmose is very beautiful, and you are always together." She rolled her eyes for a while, and thought of another piece of evidence. "He never wore a shirt when he was with you. This is simply slander." It's as if Tuthmose wore a shirt when he was with others. Amónhotep became speechless instead. Very good, his little wife really has the ability to make him so angry that his head hurts and still find it funny. He grabbed her wrist forcefully, held her horizontally in his arms, and strode towards the direction of the tent. The soldiers passing by seemed to have suffered a lot of such torture in front of them in the past few days. They looked up and then immediately lowered their heads to do their own things. However, the gossip information in their eyes was very strong. His Highness is His Highness. He acted so calmly in broad daylight. It's okay to get privileges, but we also want to see our wives! Exclamation mark. Until he was pressed on the cold bed, the corners of the boy's eyes were obviously red. If he didn't stop it, he didn't know what would happen. Lin Ya softened her mouth and begged for mercy. I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. Will there be a next time? No. You have nothing to do with Thutmose. You like women. Oh, no, you like me. A good man will not suffer a loss in front of him, and he should admit his mistakes when he should. You just said Thutmose is beautiful? Huh? His tone was slightly raised, and his expression made the danger index rise again and again. Is Tuthmose really beautiful? He seems to be really good looking, otherwise he wouldn't have attracted so many noble ladies. Even Amos was fascinated by him. Ye also thought so? No. How could he be as good as my husband? Looking at Thebes, no. Looking at the whole kingdom, he is the most beautiful person, known as the most beautiful man in Kemet. Facing such a dangerous man, she flattered him quickly, and the words slipped out of her mouth. Amónhotep didn't want to do anything to her, just wanted to scare her and punish her a little, but he didn't expect that in the end, he would be the first to be moved. Who the hell is being punished? He has been indulgent enough these days, and it's not night yet, but he doesn't feel willing to let her go like this, so he smiled sinisterly, stretched out his hands, and scratched the itchy flesh on her waist a few times, making her laugh until tears came out before he withdrew his claws. She laughed so hard that she hiccuped. She had no strength left in her body. She collapsed softly on the bed and pulled him down with her. In 2 days, it will be the Opet festival. She held his arm and whispered. Yet, when mentioning the Opet festival, Amónhotep's tone became heavy. He ojaya this matter. This will be the first Opet festival we celebrate together. Yeah, I'm sorry. This year, I can't accompany you back to Thebes to celebrate the festival no matter what. Silly. She raised her hand and touched his head. Who said we have to go to Thebes to celebrate the festival? Huh? Where else to go if not Thebes? The center of the Opet festival is in Thebes. It is an event held by the 3 gods of Thebes between the 2 sides. It does not exist in other places. Even if it does, the festive atmosphere will not be so strong. As long as I am with you, it is the best festival anywhere. Ah, my mother took me out to play, I almost forgot, I posted it at the wrong time again. I was wrong. I will dare to do it next time. Chapter 234 Military Festival. As the Opet festival approached, everything in the Tanis military camp seemed to be the same as usual, and they were still doing various war preparation activities, but Lin Ya was keenly aware of something different inside. They seemed to be more excited. The soldiers would gather together to wrestle, have archery competitions in their spare time, and have various drills. Amónhotep's injury had almost healed, and he even mixed in with the soldiers again and had an archery competition with them. He couldn't use too much force on his shoulder injury, and the bow was only half as full as usual. But I don't know if he was really born with supernatural power or if the soldiers didn't dare to compare with him. He always took the lead, and the arrow was firmly inserted into the bullseye. Whenever this happened, Lin Ya would desperately applaud and cheer for him, her face red, and her eyes full of him. At the beginning, he was still shooting happily, but later he found that no one dared to try his best with him, so he lost interest and stopped joining this activity. One day, when Lin Ya asked him why he didn't go to the event, he hugged his wife with grievance. I won't go. I always win. They don't dare. It's boring. Late at night, Lin Ya heard him tossing and turning beside her, occasionally sighing slightly. She pursed her lips silently and grabbed the sheets in her hands. She understood that he was thinking about the front line and wanted to return to the battlefield urgently, but he was worried about her and was in a dilemma. He was a man. War was not only the expectation of the kingdom for him, but also his own wish. It was a place for the blood in his bones to vent. The danger in it would only make him more excited. Every scar on his body was his merit. After all, she became an obstacle to his progress. Lin Ya felt mixed feelings in her heart, both guilty and fortunate. Guilty that she had tripped his steps and became his weak spot. Fortunately, he was thinking about her in his heart. Would he not fight so hard on the battlefield and would think about coming back to reunite with her intact? She knew that he was the hope of all the people in Kemet, but she was extremely selfish at the same time. He was her husband, the one she loved most. Which wife would want her husband to be killed or injured on the front line? If she hadn't appeared here, he would have left for Sheridan a long time ago. He was fulfilling his promise and wanted to fulfill her wish to spend the Apet festival with him. The Apet festival was coming. After this festival, it would be another separation for an unknown period of time. The soldiers in the barracks were still making weapons most of the time to prepare for the consumption on the front line. The most common ones were the beating sticks. This thing was simple to make. Pick up a piece of hard rock, drill a hole in it, insert the stick, and then tie it tightly with a rope. It was simple, but it was very painful to hide a person. Hitting the skull and other important parts would kill him directly. There were also simple but penetrating weapons such as spears. The most common ones were arrows. The consumption of this kind of thing was extremely amazing and needed to be made in large quantities. Amónhotep was very busy even in the military camp. He only had a little time to spend with her every day. Most of the time, he was surrounded by his generals in the tent to discuss some important military matters. Whenever they talked about such things, Lin Ya would go out very discerningly, and did not want to stay there to be a decoration that did not understand anything. After coming out, there was nothing to do. She could only look for Ipt and Sahel, and then let the Nubian soldier named Neferhopi take them to wander around the military camp, like idle vagrants. Every time she found Neferhopi, he was always making this kind of arrow. After strolling for a long time, she was tired. Lin Ya no longer had any curiosity about the entire military camp. Walking made her doubt her life. She felt that if she had a mobile phone hanging on her body now, she must be the one with the most steps in the circle of friends. In the end, she simply stopped strolling. Every day when Amónhotep had something to talk about, she would go out to Neferhopi directly to learn how to make arrows from him and walk with him. This thing is not as troublesome as smelting. It is easy to do and not very time-consuming. It is a good job to kill time. It is often done quickly while chatting. When Amónhotep comes to find her, she will suddenly realize that time has passed so quickly. This kind of work is not very harmful to the hands. After several persuasions, I stopped persuading her. Anyway, it will take only a few days, so he worked with her. The joining of the princess obviously gave a shot of adrenaline to the soldiers who were working. Moreover, she was not pretending, but really integrated into them. Such an approachable royal family has never been seen before. Imported birch or elm trees are cut into poles, and a tightly fitting arrowhead is put on it. It is glued with fish glue in the middle, and the tail feathers and the arrow shaft are tightly wrapped with thread. This is considered a finished arrow. Why do I feel that the soldiers in the camp are so excited recently? Is it because of the upcoming Apet festival? Lin Ya wrapped up the tail of an arrow and piled it aside, looking up and asking Neferhopi, in the past 2 days, everyone in the military camp had obvious smile lines on their faces, and the smiles in their eyes could not be hidden. Or is it a victory in the front? Thutmose and his men are about to return in triumph. Well, there seems to be no other reason that can make them so happy, right? It's not that easy to win a victory in the front. You don't know that the fortress of Sheridan is famous for its solidity. Neferhopi continued, but after saying this, he felt that he had said the wrong thing, and hurriedly continued to talk about other remedies. It's like this, the reason why we are so excited is indeed because of the upcoming Apet festival. How can he talk about his pessimism about this war in front of the princess, especially since he is a foreigner himself? Fortunately, Lin Ya didn't seem to pay attention to this matter. Any siege war would not be easy to fight. Although she believed in her husband, this could not make others believe it with her. Yes, the Apet festival only comes once a year, so it's normal to be so excited. The elm wood is hard, even if it is an arrow shaft, you can feel its weight in your hand. What needs to be done now is to sharpen it and put on the arrowhead. This step I always thought was dangerous and didn't let her try it. Now I went to fetch water for her, and she was finally able to pick up the small and sharp knife and try to cut the elm strip into the shape she wanted. It's not like that, Your Highness. During the Apet festival in previous years, the army was no different from usual. Neferhopi smiled and replied. The celebration center of the Opet festival was in Thebes, so how could it spread to this distant border? Huh? Then why is this happening now? In previous years, the army only had a few days off, but this time it's different. What's different? Lin Ya was a little confused. How could this be different? Opet is Opet. Speaking of this, I still have to thank the princess for coming. Neferhotep said with a smile, but this time it was not his turn to speak halfway, and the other soldiers around him began to express their gratitude to Lin Ya. His Highness Amónhotep said it. This year, the army will be as lively as the event site in Thebes. It's just that there will be no participation from the gods. If the statues don't participate, then don't participate. The carnival is the most important thing. Saya, don't talk nonsense. How can you not expect the participation of the gods? Don't talk nonsense. Amon God, worshipping him in the heart is also worshipping him. He will definitely understand that I have him in my heart. But this kind of carnival that has never happened in the army, you dare to say that you don't look forward to it. That's right. You said it so nicely. Put away the smile on your face first, brother. So the man just shut up and sat back in his original position honestly, but the pair of eyes looking at Lin Ya were still shining like the people around him. Although this order was issued by His Majesty Amónhotep, we all know in our hearts that this is a benefit that you can enjoy. I can't remember how many years it has been since I last participated in the Opet Carnival. Chapter 235, A Pet for Two. This change is obviously because of me. They're alright. Aksha is really preparing a festival celebration for me. With a tremor in her hand, the knife for cutting wood strips was a little crooked, and went straight into the base of her other hand. She was still in a daze, not realizing what she had done, but suddenly a touch of warmth covered the back of her hand, blocking her hand, which made her come back to her senses. Are you done? Why are you so careless? Before she could finish her words, she was blocked by someone. She looked at the man's hand, then at the knife in her hand that almost stabbed her, and pursed her lips and said nothing. What else to say? If he hadn't come, maybe there would be a bloody hole now. Why let the princess do such a dangerous thing? Amónhotep frowned and glanced around. The people who were so excited just now immediately shrank their necks. I was so engrossed in what I said just now that I didn't see that the princess almost stabbed me with a knife. It seems that they are indeed responsible for not taking good care of her. Your Highness, it's like this. Neferhotep stood up with a stiff upper lip. No matter what, he had invited a princess here, and he couldn't cause trouble for his comrades. Don't blame them. It's me who insisted on trying to cut tree branches, and I was always distracted. Lin Ya waved her hands to explain hurriedly, but it didn't make Amónhotep's face look any better. His brows were still frowned, but he didn't ask the soldiers about it anymore. Let's go, he said, holding her hand tightly, and almost dragged her out of the crowd. Look at how good the relationship between the two princes is. Indeed, they even celebrated the Opet festival in the military camp. That's right, if the princess hadn't just said forget it, our brothers would have never escaped a scolding. Our Prince Amónhotep really dotes on his wife. The chattering of the soldiers behind him made Lin Ya feel a little hot in her ears, and although Amónhotep didn't say anything, from his slightly upturned lips, he was obviously happy in his heart. The soldiers under his command were a little loud, and they didn't even speak in a low voice when discussing behind people's backs. It was really difficult to ignore them. Glancing at the embarrassed look on his wife's face, he pretended to clear his throat. Keep your voice down, or the carnival will be cancelled. The soldiers looked at each other, and a leader came out and nodded in agreement, and then he really spoke in a lower voice and continued to talk. When he said speak softly, he didn't mean to stop talking about him. He was just deliberately fooling people. This made Lin Ya even more embarrassed. She almost wanted to dig a hole in the ground with her toes and crawl into it. Your Highnesses are so well matched. I can still hear it even after walking so far. Has anyone told you that even if you speak softly, you are still very loud? Exclamation mark. Back in the tent, Amónhotep pressed her hands into the basin and washed them carefully, one knuckle at a time. Because of the wooden strips, her hands were covered with tree pulp. The blue-black color made them very difficult to wash. Usually, she would wash them for a long time every time she came back, using a lot of strength, and rubbing her fingers until they turned red. But his movements now were gentle, little by little, so gentle that she almost felt like he was caressing her. His big hands wrapped around hers, dipped in the lye mixed with oil, and rubbed out a little delicate foam. The tree pulp that was usually difficult to wash was treated differently, and he was very considerate. It really faded from her hands completely, revealing its original snow-white color. After washing his hands, Amónhotep picked up a small jar of ointment from a shelf on the side and motioned her to stretch out her hand. No, she shook her head. This thing is too greasy. I don't want to apply it. Being ruthlessly ignored again, he directly pulled her hand away without saying anything. He took a shallow piece of the greasy ointment and applied it directly to the back of her hand. The thin layer was not as greasy as it looked. On the contrary, the moment it was applied, there was a cool feeling that spread throughout the whole hand. Although making arrows seems to be nothing, her delicate hands will have tiny wounds on them after a day of friction. They are invisible to the eyes, but they will feel painful at night. Amónhotep knew this very well, so he would not allow her to refuse. Both hands were already painted, but he still did not let go. Like a massage, he rubbed her knuckles, making a slight sound. Such a caring lover, such a scene, how can people not be moved? But her lover's face is a little stinky, but it doesn't matter, a stinky face is also beautiful. He held her hands and she leaned forward to kiss his cheek. Baji Amónhotep had a sullen face, but he didn't dodge when she kissed him. He enjoyed the softness on his cheek and hummed softly, "Thank you my baby for preparing the carnival for the Opet festival for me. I'm very happy." Her fingers had been released by him, and she smiled and wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her whole body against him. Huh? Why is my baby unhappy? Who provoked him? I'll beat him up. She shouted exaggeratedly, "I told you not to go with him." He pursed his nose and complained in a low voice, I have nothing to do." She was still angry because she almost got hurt. "I'm not hurt. Not this." "What is it?" "You are my wife, but you don't accompany me all day, and go to hang out with some shirtless guys." When he mentioned this, he couldn't help but grind his teeth. What's so good about those bastards? Did his wife come to visit him? Why does she spend more time with them than him every day? So that's how it is. Why is her family so jealous? The Opet festival kicked off early the next morning. Although it was located in Tanis, which was very far away from Thebes, everyone here was still in high spirits, as if they were among the people of Thebes, listening to the king's morning prayers, and watching the ark with the shrine of the three gods of the temple being lifted out of the temple with a parade of people, as if they were really participating in it. But obviously, none of these happened. But this did not affect their interest. The livestock raised in the military camp met their doomsday early in the morning. The pigs and sheep were tied up by their feet and hung on poles, and slaughtered into fresh meat. Some officers bought a large amount of fruit and wine from the city, all for the celebration in the evening. At night, a bonfire was lit in the open space of the military camp, and all kinds of food were placed on the ground for free use. Except for the necessary guards, all people arrived here to party. Lin Ya was pulled by Amónhotep to the river near the military camp. The waves in the river were shining silver under the moonlight, and water lilies were floating on them. It was night, the flower buds were closed, and only green leaves were left in the water. Unknown insects and frogs could be heard, but there was silence. Here, everything under the moon belonged to only the two of them. Lin Ya had drunk a few glasses of wine before, and she was a little confused now. The boy in front of her had a double image in her eyes, shaking back and forth in her eyes. "Aksha, don't shake. You're making me dizzy." "Okay." Amónhotep was a little helpless. How could his Yaya get drunk so easily? He hadn't said anything yet. He wrapped her little hand in his palm and looked into her eyes with obvious affection. "Yeah, do you like this carnival? There is nothing here, but there is me." "Well, why isn't Amon here? I still have to fulfill my vow even though there's no oracle." Her eyes were hazy and she wasn't quite clear yet. "What vow do you want to fulfill?" "I asked for an oracle in Dendera. The oracle said I would see you. It's very effective, I tell you." Hearing this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was really confused. Why did she have to go to Amon to fulfill a vow she made to Hathor? "But there's no Amon today. Who should I fulfill my vow to?" "To me." He tempted her with ill intentions. "To you? Why to you? How can you represent Amon? What do other people call my father?" Amónhotep curled his eyes in amusement and led her back to his own way. "Your Majesty the King, no. What do people say when they salute him?" "Ah, I know that." Lin Ya, who had learned etiquette many times, became excited in an instant and imitated Tantaman's voice in a rough voice, "King of Upper and Lower Kemet. The only owner of the two lands. The owner of all glory. the darling of the goddess of war, the son of the god Amon. Your Majesty Amos as well. May you remain young and healthy forever. Amónhotep was almost laughing at her, but he still concealed it well, with only a hint of smile in his voice. Yes, my father is the son of the god Amon, then what about me? I know this question. She turned around suddenly, with a bright light in her eyes. You are the grandson of the god Amon. How can he be the grandson of the god Amon? In several years, he will also sit in that position, and he will be called the son of Amon. No, you are. Your father is the son of Amon. If you are not a grandson, then what are you? Before he could finish his explanation, he was interrupted by a drunkard, who choked him successfully. Well, he would not argue with a drunkard. The son's son is indeed a grandson. The logic is very smooth, but why does it sound so weird? Then I am also the bloodline of Amon. If you want to fulfill a wish for him, you can also tell me. Really? Her brain was not very sharp anymore, but she still instinctively felt that something was wrong. Of course it's true. The words had just fallen, and there was no time to stop him, when the girl knelt on the ground with a plop, and gave him a great salute of unknown etiquette. She knelt on both knees with her arms stretched forward, as if she was doing the etiquette that she should do in front of the king but did it wrong. He pulled her up several times but she couldn't get up, and she even shook his hand off fiercely. Amónhotep had no choice but to squat down and try to keep her level with him. She kowtowed 3 times respectfully, put her head on the ground, and then slowly spoke. Sakyamuni, the 3 pure ones, the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother, Zeus, Odin, Shiva, Amon, Terra, Adam, and Osiris are all above. Thanks to you, I found a super handsome husband. I love him so much. Since you have blessed us to be together, then you should make more efforts to let us stay together forever. I promise that your incense will not be missing every year. She said the names of dozens of gods in a row, and Amónhotep was a little dazed listening to the side. He understood all this Amon PTA, but who was she talking about before? Why didn't she have any impression of her husband? What was incense? Was it the drunkard's nonsense? The thread of wisdom in his mind was immediately broken again, because he heard his Yaya say that she loved him very much and wanted to be with him forever. Some people say that the words spoken by people after drinking are the most true words. No matter whether others believe it or not, he believes it now. Amónhotep's heart was so soft, as if the night here had turned into day. Lin Ya thought she had fulfilled her wish, so she stumbled up from the ground, fell into his arms, and gave him a kiss with a strong smell of alcohol. At the end, she raised her little hand and wiped off the suspicious silver light at the corner of her mouth. Hey, I have fulfilled my wish. Just tell me, do you agree to the wish I just made? I agree, he surrendered helplessly. His Yaya was so stupid. Why did she ask God for such a thing? He was obviously here. Wouldn't this be more effective than all the gods for him? You know what's good for you. If you don't agree. If I don't agree. He raised one eyebrow. What would happen if she didn't agree? I will. She was a little anxious, revealing the appearance of a little beast. You are so beautiful. I will kiss you until you agree. After saying that, she rushed over and bit his lips hard again, raising her fist as if to protest. Then who am I? Kiss until you agree? What if the object is really a statue? Can you kiss it too? Thinking of this, Amónhotep felt a little jealous. No. Yaya can only kiss him. The statue is not okay. You are. Who am I? You are my super handsome husband Amónhotep. What can he say, drunk like this? Okay, it's not bad, at least I still remember that it's him in front of me, not someone else. After a while, she calmed down from the initial restlessness, looking at the moon in the sky, playing with his hanging hair with her fingers, braiding it into a loose braid, and then untying it into a small fan. It's different. What's different? It's different from the festival carnival, she pouted, looking a little aggrieved. Yeah. This is in the military camp, it must be different from Thebes, there are people dancing at the festival carnival. I want to see the dancing. This is in the military camp, all men, how could anyone dance? No matter what. I want to see dancing. His hesitation made her unhappy. She rolled around and acted like a spoiled child in his arms. Well, from his perspective, she looked like a rolling donkey. No one here can dance. He pressed his forehead with his hand and said helplessly, I want to see you dance. I can't dance. You danced last time in Edford. She sat up from his arms and looked at him with red eyes, which showed clearly that you were lying. What can he say? Those are a few fixed moves performed in sacrificial ceremonies, not dance. Can this kind of logic really make sense to a drunkard? In the end, Amónhotep still danced in the moonlight. He was wearing a pure white turban, and a belt made of gold, pearls and gems was tightly outlined around his waist. He had broad shoulders, a narrow waist and long legs. The evening breeze lifted the hem of his clothes and he swayed in the moonlight. It was indeed a few simple sacrificial movements, but at his feet, they were much more graceful than all the well-rehearsed dances in the world. The silver moonlight shone on his profile, his beautiful face, and the corners of his peacock blue eyes. There were only a few movements, but she didn't say stop, so he did it over and over again, until that person watched, jumped up from the ground, and threw herself into his arms, her furry hair directly hitting his chin. Her small hands tightly wrapped around his waist, hugging him tightly. What's wrong? Amónhotep stopped and asked in confusion. Actually, Lin Ya raised her little face and stared into his eyes. I really love you. At the moment just now, for some reason, a few words appeared in her mind. She felt that the man was like a real immortal, who was about to ascend to heaven. Then she hugged him in a hurry. Holding him, she felt at ease in her heart. He would not fly away. He belonged to her alone. Well, I know. Amónhotep smiled and squeezed the little hand on his waist, slowly tightened it, and held it firmly in his palm. I know, of course I know, because I love you too. Amónhotep, do those bastards look as good as me when they are shirtless? Exclamation mark. I am the best looking. My muscles are the most beautiful. Exclamation mark. Ah. Dot. This. Dot. I found that the name I chose after I finished naming it was the same as yesterday's. I can't change it after posting it. I am so sad. Dot. If appears in the text, don't be confused, it's the name of Buddha. I don't know if it will be blocked, but the YSL I posted before was blocked. Dot. In addition, there is an extra chapter in the second chapter today. It has a normal number of words, but the name is not good and I have obsessive compulsive disorder and don't divide the chapters. There is no way, the chapters are now even numbered, and I don't want to be left alone. Trojans, I love you too. Chapter 236 Awkward Kiss. Normally, the Opet festival would last for about a month, but it was impossible to follow the normal process in the army now. The military Opet festival only lasted for 3 days. After 3 days, everything returned to silence. The young Prince Amónhotep would eventually return to the battlefield where he belonged. On the outskirts of Tanis, several chariots were quietly parked, followed by large groups of troops. They had to part ways here. At this fork in the road, one went east and the other went south. It was unknown how long it would take for them to meet again. The young man gently stroked the girl's hair and gently pinned her hair that was messed up by the breeze behind her ears. The wind in the early morning was a little cold. He took off his cloak with his backhand and put it on her. Enough, enough. I'm wearing enough thick clothes and the sun will come out soon. She pouted and protested softly. It was so cold in the morning, and he gave her the cloak. What if she caught a cold again? Be obedient. The boy's voice became deep and he tied the straps tightly. Lin Ya buried her head in his arms and greedily breathed in his scent. I'll wait for you in Memphis. Yeah, I'll be back soon. Amónhotep paused, not knowing what to say, and just hugged her back tightly with his hands. I will protect myself and give you a complete husband. You have to take care of yourself too. I know. Let's go, don't waste time. Lin Ya sniffed, gently pushed him back, got out of his arms, and then turned around quickly before he could react, waved behind her, and stepped onto the chariot he had prepared for her. Let's go. She gripped the handle of the car and said lightly to the driver beside her, so the driver responded yes, nodded and raised the whip. The wheels rolled, running faster and faster, but she never looked back to see her boy again. She didn't dare to look back, not at all, didn't dare to let him see her expression that was about to cry, didn't dare to let him see her reluctance. Really, why does parting always make people so annoyed? Why do my eyes feel so sore? Let's go. I've been entangled with him for these days. I'm tired of it. He will be back soon. Maybe go back to Memphis, have a good sleep, and when I wake up, he will be back. Maybe there will be another full moon. He will always appear in front of me again. Amónhotep stood there and watched her resolute back, pursing his lips slightly. How could he not know what she was thinking? This is his yeah, well-behaved, considerate, sensible, which makes him distressed, watching her and the guards leave until she can no longer see her figure. Only a few traces of ruts are left on the ground, and then he stepped on his chariot. "Let's go." The warhorse let out a long neigh, and the chariot started. He raised his head and looked to the east where the sky and the earth met in a golden sand. In the distant Sheridan, that was the battlefield he was about to arrive at. "Your Highness, we should go." The lower sand was empty, and I stepped forward and reminded quietly, "Wait a little longer, I can still see him." On the high ground of the sand dune, Lin Ya stood on it and looked up. She seemed to have walked very far, but in fact she only stopped at the back of the sand dune. When Amónhotep set off, she stuck her head out and watched him leave. The chariot carrying him sped all the way to the east, going farther and farther, and finally, with the rising sun, it became a spot of light in the sun. "Your Highness, the sun has come out. Please take off your cloak, I will help you hold it." Looking up and squinting at the rising sun, I said, "Okay." Lin Ya responded lightly, and finally just pulled off the inner layer and handed it to Ip's hand. "Your Highness, there is another layer. No need, let's go. I'm afraid it will be a bit cold when the car is running." She waved her hand and refused directly. The chariot was speeding, and the wind it brought lifted her cloak. The white cloak fluttered in the wind, and the sun illuminated the golden pattern on the back. The eagle with its wings spread out protected the owner of the cloak with its wings. It was his emblem. After not returning for a few days, the palace was still the same as before, without any change, and the operation of the palace did not stagnate. Lin Ya secretly curled her lips, knowing that it would be the same with or without her. Amónhotep had been missing for a long time. It was said that she disappeared the day after she disappeared. Her disappearance was very strange. No one knew how Amónhotep left the palace. No one saw her in and out, and she disappeared. Lin Ya just listened to this and did not make any extra statements. She just said that if someone disappeared, then they disappeared, and there was no need to look for them anymore. Amónhotep was not an ordinary person. She was an informant of the Hyksos. She wanted to leave silently, and there were many ways. If she left, she would not be found again. Lin Ya knew this a long time ago. She was not dead, and she was alive and well. She thought with her toes that Amónhotep, the exposed spy, would not stay. When she came back this time, the palace servants seemed to reject her even more. It was understandable that they had complaints since she ran away without saying a word and troubled them for so long. They should be thankful that the Apet festival had not ended and that Tuna had not returned, otherwise she would have to endure another lecture and might even write a letter back to Thebes to complain to Nefertari, making the impression she left on Nefertari even worse, which would have been terrible. The statue made before had arrived in Thebes smoothly before the coming of Apet. At the opening of the Apet festival, it was pushed all the way from the dock to the temple square. Amos stood between the claws of the statue and made an appearance, stealing the limelight. This matter was handled very properly. His Majesty the King was very pleased. He was deeply moved when he heard Tunia's words that she stayed in Memphis for Amónhotep and the people in the north. He sent people to deliver a large number of rewards with a wave of his hand. On the day when the reward arrived, Lin Ya was waiting at the dock of Memphis in her best clothes. She was exposed to the sun for a whole morning. It was so hot that she was about to peel off a layer of skin. When the reward arrived, she performed all the etiquette as if she was welcoming the king, kneeling and bowing to welcome the gifts off the ship. That's not all. When everything was over, the ceremonial officer actually took an oval box from the attendant. The ceremonial officer opened the lid in the shape of the shield with Amos's name. Lin Ya's eyelids jumped instantly, and she felt that something bad was going to happen. Sure enough, there was a pile of red lining cloth inside, on which was neatly placed a golden slipper. The upper was made of pure gold, with lotus and symbols of life engraved on the upper, and foreigners of various shapes painted on the sole. This was the shoe of Amos. "Your Highness, please salute." The ceremonial officer took out the shoe, held it in front of her, bent down and bowed. Lin Ya closed her eyes helplessly, struggling in her heart. "Salute? What salute? Is there any need to say what?" He was waiting for her to kiss the slipper. Amos's slippers. I don't know if he has worn them before. Even if he has never worn them, it would be a bit of a psychological barrier. "Your Highness," seeing that she was hesitant to move, the ceremonial officer urged anxiously, "Then kiss it. The sooner you die, the sooner you will be reborn." But has he ever worn it before? Lin Ya had a fierce struggle in her heart, and finally gritted her teeth and lowered her head. It was the supreme honor for the people of Kemet to kiss the king's toes. Although Amos himself was not present, he still gave his daughter-in-law one of his own slippers. This was an absolute favor, at least that's what everyone present thought. She put her face close to the shoe, trying to suppress the nausea that surged in her heart, but still felt that she couldn't do it. Finally, at the moment when her nose was about to touch it, she moved her lips, made a slight sound, and then raised her head very quickly. It was enough for her to know that she didn't kiss. The ceremonial officer's head was lower than hers, and he couldn't see it. Anyway, from this angle, it must have been kissed in the eyes of outsiders. After the kissing ceremony, the ceremonial officer respectfully put the slippers back into the box, said goodbye to Lin Ya, and returned to the boat. Looking at the people on the waterfront who were respectful to Lin Ya, he nodded secretly. Her Royal Highness the Princess is so sincere in her filial piety to His Majesty that even the slippers she kissed made a sound. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Pregnancy Assistance. The gifts sent by Amos were a bit intriguing. Not to mention the ordinary gold, silver and jewelry that were expected, they were opened box by box, carried off the ship, and sent all the way back to the palace. The sunlight shone on them with a golden light, almost blinding people's eyes. But what was the meaning of the last cow? The cow was led down from the boat calmly, chewing grass leisurely in its mouth. When it came in front of her, it opened its mouth and spit out a white mist at her. Lin Ya felt a little confused. What is going on? She could understand rewarding gold and silver jewelry, but what did this cow mean? Kill it and eat its meat. Your Majesty really has high hopes for the princess and specially sent a sacred bull. This is what the ceremonial officer said at the time. Yes. I will not let my father down. I will prepare it in the most delicious way. Lin Ya said hesitantly, wiping the embarrassed sweat from her forehead. She really couldn't guess what Amos meant by giving a cow. Maybe it was because the beef was delicious, so he sent it to himself to replenish his body? But every time she said a word, the ceremonial officer's expression became a little weirder. Your Highness, this sacred cow was raised in the temple of Hathor in Dendera. The ceremonial officer hesitated to speak, not daring to point it out directly, wanting to save her face, but she didn't expect that this was just talking to a deaf person, talking at cross purposes. She didn't understand what this cow meant at all. Oh, so, Hathor's sacred cow must be delicious. Please tell my father that I will eat every piece of meat. The more she spoke, the more guilty she felt. This cow was so big, how long would it take to eat it all? Now there was no such thing as a refrigerator. She couldn't eat the meat until it was smelly, right? The eyelids of the ceremonial officer twitched violently. Now he could not care about the face of Her Royal Highness the Princess. She was not nervous for a moment. She really did not understand. If the cow was really killed at that time, it would be a big sin. Your Highness, it's like this. This sacred cow is not for slaughter. It is a cow, used to produce milk for you to drink. Huh? Is that so? Why go to so much trouble? Milk is not available everywhere. She looked back at Ipt blankly, only to see that Ipt had an expressionless face. Only the slightly twitching corners of her mouth showed that she was not calm. This is embarrassing. Lin Ya felt that if possible, what Ipt wanted to say most now was that I didn't know her. On the way back, she looked at the cow walking in front of her with its butt twisting, and her heart was filled with grief and indignation. It was this cow. It embarrassed herself. Ipt couldn't help but mutter to him, Your Majesty, why did you insist on giving me a cow, or a sacred cow? How would I know that it is for milk production? This milk is different when you drink it. She really didn't know anything about her own prince. The ceremonial officer clearly said that it was a sacred cow, and it was raised in the temple of Hathor. Ipt twitched his lips and patiently explained to her, Your Highness, it's like this. Goddess Hathor is the goddess in charge of fertility. The milk produced by the sacred cow raised by her has the power of Hathor, which can make women conceive as soon as possible. Ordinary people can only be rewarded with a cup of this milk when they are on pilgrimage, and a woman is only allowed to drink it once in her life. However, Amos packed the whole cow and sent it from Dendera. This cannot but be said to be a great love and a great expectation. If it was really slaughtered by His Majesty and eaten as meat, what would the consequences be? I didn't dare to think about it. Probably their expressions would be the same as hers and the ceremonial officers at this moment. So this is the effect? After listening to Ip's explanation, Lin Ya raised her handkerchief to cover her face. Okay, stop talking. I get it. Shame on you. So shameful. Her father-in-law sent her a cow in the hope that she would get pregnant, but she wanted to eat it. She even decided whether to braise it or stir-fry it. Especially since she said this in front of the Theban ceremonial officer, she didn't know if he would report the truth to Amos when he returned. What would her parents-in-law think then? It's over. This person has been lost from Memphis to Thebes. After being exposed to the sun outside for a whole day, she took a nice bath in the palace, and the heat on her body was relieved a little. She felt cool all over. Money-loving Lin Ya got up from the bed, rolled on the ground and looked through the gifts that Amos had given her. If she remembered correctly, those boxes were all glittering with gold. There must be a lot of good things. How much money must they be worth? Thinking of this, Lin Ya felt that the embarrassment she had suffered during the day was nothing. Her eyes lit up and she opened the lid of a box directly. She opened the lid, reached in, grabbed a handful, raised her hand to take a look, and threw it back. Bang! The lid closed, and she opened another one, bang, and closed it again. She pursed her lips and closed her eyes, exhaled heavily, and calmed her heart for a while, but found that she couldn't calm down. She ran back to the bed, buried her face in the pillow, and hid it twice to vent her anger. What exactly did Amos reward her with? What made her so irritable? The answer is that the things are indeed good things: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, agate, chalcedony, alabaster, amber, glass, and red crystal. The richness of creation is dazzling, but they all have a unified and prominent theme: hippopotamus, shells, and bullheads. The hippopotamus represents Tavoret, the goddess who protects pregnant women. Shells are a symbol of fertility, not to mention the bullhead, which represents the goddess Hathor. It is self-evident what Amos meant by sending these. Speechless. Every morning after that, when I brought Lin Ya freshly squeezed milk and looked at the cowhead and shell jewelry on the table, she felt depressed. She couldn't help but think of the aunts and uncles who urged her to get married and have children. My goodness, in modern times, she was still an old flower of the motherland, and it was not her turn to enjoy these things. Now that she came here, everything was arranged. Does marriage have to have a baby immediately? She hasn't enjoyed the world of two people yet. From marriage to now, the days together seem to be stolen, much shorter than the days he is away from her now. Thinking of this, even the milk she always liked to drink didn't taste good. After breakfast and morning class, Lin Ya met Amónhotep's follower Saha in the garden of the Temple of Ta. Saha, what do you want to see me for? She ate a snack and said leisurely, Your Highness, you asked me to find the pharmacist before, and he has already given the result. Saha bowed and said respectfully, It's been so long, how come it's only now coming out? Wouldn't the milk have gone bad? Besides, Amónhotep has disappeared a long time ago. With such efficiency, it's no wonder that Aksha didn't take him with him when he went to the war. Well, what did Amónhotep put in that day? The result was actually out a long time ago, but Lin Ya never asked, so he didn't remember it. When he returned to the palace, the maid who offended was gone, and he couldn't remember it even more. It wasn't until he accidentally met the pharmacist in the palace recently, and he was reminded by him that he suddenly remembered this thing that he had forgotten. Your Highness, it's like this. The pharmacist told me that there are indeed some drugs in it that are harmless to the human body, but they are not sleep aids. Saha lowered his head slightly, and seemed to be hesitant to speak. What is that? Lin Ya was puzzled. It's not a sleep aid, and it's harmless to the body. So what did she put in it for herself? It can't be laxative beans? Your Highness, it is to help with pregnancy. He stammered, looking at Lin Ya's face as he spoke. When he saw that she was indeed embarrassed, he still stammered out the rest of the sentence, and the pharmacist also said that he had never seen this formula before, and the effect should be very good. Your Highness. Okay, you can go down. Lin Ya felt speechless now, very speechless. It was understandable that Amos gave her a cow and shell jewelry. After all, he was the child's grandfather and was looking forward to holding his grandson. You, Amónhotep, our Hyksos. Why did you give me this medicine? Exclamation mark. Even the Hyksos are looking forward to my giving birth? Exclamation mark. You are villains, brother. Exclamation mark. Lin Ya, braised beef, cumin beef, boiled beef, roast beef jerky, swallowing saliva, ceremony officer, Princess, it's not for eating. Yeah, what? Question mark. What did you say? Question mark. The wind is too strong and I can't hear you. Chapter 238 The Secret of Puta. The word God is probably the easiest to write and remember of all words. A simple small flag, like the flag on the gate of a temple tower, has as many flags as there are gods. The Kemet hieroglyphs are not just words. They can only be used in formal occasions because they believe that words represent a special power that contains the power of God and is very advanced magic. Like Thebes, the gods of Memphis are composed of 3 gods from one family. The husband is the god of creation Ta, his wife is the goddess of war Sekhmet, and his son is the god of lotus Nefertim. The 3 flags represent the 3 gods of Memphis. When it is written out, its divine power will be reflected. After the last vertical bar is drawn, the word is over. Lin Ya held his chin and fell into deep thought. Nefertiti was a very boring person. Or rather, it was that people who were with him would be very boring, because he was always sleeping, either brewing sleepiness or closing his eyes to take a nap. Lin Ya always thought that perhaps his god gave him a pair of eyes just for reciting scriptures while singing. Have you finished writing? If you don't have any questions, today's class is over. Nefertiti raised his eyes after an unknown period of time and found that Lin Ya had stopped writing. He stretched his bent waist and said, this action made Lin Ya twitch her lips. She had no doubt that if he didn't want to leave a little image for himself, he would want to stretch or yawn now. Teacher Nefertiti, you have believed in the god Ta since you were a child, so you are called the beautiful Ta, and then you are the high priest of the god Ta. She asked this question out of boredom, wanting to see some different expressions on Nefertiti's face. After all, she was not stupid. The high priest of the temple of Horus was not called Nefer Horus, and the high priest of the temple of Amon was not called Amon Nafe. Of course. To her disappointment, Nefertiti's expression was very calm, and he didn't even bother to raise his eyelids. That is to say, only those who give names that praise God can be sacrifices to this god. Lin Ya deliberately teased him. Yes, so I think God Ta is beautiful, so he gave me the power to be his high priest. His expression changed this time, and his eyelids only slightly lifted a little, but it was obvious that he was talking nonsense. Teacher Nefertiti, you are lying. As the chief high priest, how can you lie? Lin Ya asked with his eyes squinting. Oh? How can I lie? He raised his eyebrow without eyebrows and opened his eyes. I have seen a priest in the temple of Amon. Others say that he is the candidate for the next high priest of Amon, but his name is not a praise of Amon. Nefertiti heard this, and his face, which had always been calm and composed, seemed to tremble slightly. He closed his eyes to cover up this unnatural feeling. His name is Tamesis. If this name is translated, it means the person born of the god Ta. Why can he be the high priest of the god Amon? Nefertiti's expression finally changed drastically, but he said nothing. He just said stiffly that today's class is over and you can go back, and then turned and left the room. Lin Ya had never seen him like this before. Nefertiti's image has always been very kind. He doesn't care about anything. No matter what questions are asked, he will answer them well. But this time he really lost his composure. He didn't walk calmly, his steps were very fast, and the wind from his sleeves made a rustling sound. It was more like running than walking, and he fled the scene as if he was escaping. Lin Ya couldn't help but feel a little confused. Did she say something that couldn't be said? It seems that she didn't say anything. Why did Nefertiti, who always answered questions, show such a look? After thinking about it for a long time, she couldn't think of anything wrong with what she had just said. She sorted out the things she had used and walked out. It was still very dark outside, with no light around. Only the fire on the wall brought a ray of light. This place was already deep inside the temple. Its identity was not enough to come here. A young priest from the temple was waiting for her outside. When he saw her come out, he immediately took the things in her hand and walked behind her with his head bowed. Did the high priest look unhappy when he went out just now? Lin Ya thought about it and asked the young priest who followed behind her. It shouldn't be. Yes, Your Highness, I haven't seen Lord Nefertiti have such a big mood swing for many years. The young priest's name is Sekhmet. He is a very young and cheerful guy. He has been very familiar with Lin Ya these days and has no scruples when talking. Huh? Is this considered a big fluctuation? How temperless is this person? She felt a little confused. What did you say to the adults? Sekhmet asked. I didn't say anything. She scratched her head awkwardly and finally told him the truth. But she found that when she finished, Sekhnet's expression was not so right. His lips were tightly pursed and he didn't say a word, as if she had mentioned some taboo. What's wrong? She felt a little panicked. Did she really say something too much? Or, it's not okay to joke that Nefertiti lied? But this kind of joke has been said before, and his expression at that time was not like today. Or is it that the temple of Amon cannot be mentioned, or that Tamisis cannot be mentioned? Your Highness, after a long time, Sekhnet spoke, and it was exactly what he thought. You should not mention this name in front of adults in the future, or in other words, don't mention this person in the temple of Ta. The torches on the wall flickered and cast a shadow on his face. His face was looming in the darkness and could not be seen clearly. Is there anything wrong with this person? Lin Ya paused, and finally decided to ask, Tamisis, does this person have any unspeakable secrets? It seemed that last time, when she and Tamisis were arguing about why he was not a priest of the god Ta, his expression was also very strange. Curiosity was itching in her heart, and the more someone hesitated to speak, the more she wanted to know. There is nothing special about this person, but I have only said good things to you. He is probably a shame in the heart of Lord Nefertiti. There was a hint of hesitation in Sekhnet's words, and his expression seemed a little embarrassed. If that's the case, then I won't ask. Since it is a shame, it means that it is a secret that Nefertiti does not want people to know, so let's not ask. Forget it, I'd better tell you. Anyway, this matter is not a secret in this temple, but no one dares to mention it in front of the adults. Sekhnet stopped hesitating, looked around, and moved closer to her. Tamisis used to be a candidate for the high priest here. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. 6 or 7 years ago, Tamisis was Nefertiti's most proud student. Nefertiti gave him everything in his life, devoted all his efforts to him, treated him like a father and son, and regarded him as his successor. After he went to eternal life, he would take over his position. The war against the Hyksos became more and more intense, and the focus of the kingdom gradually shifted to Memphis. After all, this was the place closest to the front line. The arrival of the king brought a series of princes and ministers here, including Tantamon, the chief priest of the temple of Amon, and his disciples. Tantamon asked him to follow the king to Memphis to gain some experience before he came of age. The accident happened here. The boy who had not yet grown up closed his eyes forever and died in Memphis. No one knew how his death went. It was only known that after that, Tamisis was no longer a priest of the temple of Ta. He eventually left here with Tantamon, betrayed Ta, converted to Amon, became Amon's most loyal believer, and replaced the position of the former boy, becoming Tantamon's disciple. Chapter 239 She and the Kingdom. After hearing the whole story, Lin Ya sighed. It turned out that this was the past. So Nefertiti's reluctance to mention Tamisis was based on his betrayal? In fact, think about it. Nefertiti had no children. He raised Tamisis as his own son, but the latter went with someone else who he had met a few times. He betrayed him and their beliefs. Anyone would be sad. Sekhnet obviously didn't tell anyone about this matter. He had no one to confide in such a thing in his heart. For him, who was lively by nature, it was also a big worry. Speaking it out seemed to relieve him of a lot of burden. It was better to have someone gossip with him than no one. Put was once my good brother. We were all shocked when he did that. In the end, it was not all because of that person's betrayal, but more of self-blame and guilt. That disciple of Lord Tantamon could have had a very bright future. Thinking back on this incident made Sekhnet feel more sad. He sighed and said leisurely, "What did he do?" The young man who died in Memphis from the temple of Amon, his death was actually related to Tamisis? Did I say anything just now, Your Highness? Why don't I remember it? It's getting dark, shall I take you out? Sekhnet realized that he had said something wrong, and hurriedly changed the subject, pretending to be stupid. He didn't look very stupid, but Lin Ya knew that if he wanted to know what he didn't want to say, he probably wouldn't say it. This is a secret about the Temple of Ta and the Temple of Amon. Is what's on it true? In Sharahu's tent, Amónhotep had a complicated expression, and his long fingers pressed heavily on the papyrus roll spread out on the table. The fragile paper made a rustling sound, as if it would be pierced by him in the next second. Your Highness, this is the information I have worked hard to get. Inagn, the former neighbors near Rhea's home can testify that when he was still a clerk, he had a wife from the north, with a high nose and deep eyes, fair skin, and beautiful chestnut hair. She doesn't look like a Kemet. Her name is Harriet. Dare said cryptically, "Okay, go down, remember your oath." Amónhotep waved his hand and ordered him to go down directly. Yes, Your Highness. Is there anything else unclear? A northerner with fair skin, high nose and deep eyes, Herod, the Hyksos who chased Ea for the key. This series of clues connected, the answer is already very clear. Ea's mother is Herod, the disappeared Hyksos princess. She is not only an ordinary Hyksos half-blood, but also a Hyksos royal family. Ordinary mixed bloods cannot even combine with him to confuse his bloodline, let alone the half-royal bloodline. A deep sense of powerlessness filled every corner of his body. He had never thought that this would be the result. What would happen if his father knew about this? What would happen if the people knew about it? The Hyksos who had been expelled from the country after hardships were now by his side. They would give birth to the legitimate royal heir, and the royal family of Kemet would eventually be inherited by someone with the blood of his enemies. It was ridiculous. His father would kill her, the people would spit on her, and everything in the world would not tolerate her. Amónhotep now understood why Rhea rejected this marriage so much, and why she asked him several times what choice the kingdom would make with Ea. He understood everything now, everything was clear. But what did it matter? He didn't care. As long as no one knew about it, nothing would happen. What if he was sorry to the people of the whole kingdom? His Ea would always be just his wife, not some dirty Hyksos. Kingdom, wife? Rhea underestimated himself. Did he think that he would be as incompetent and cowardly as him, hiding his beloved, and even protecting her was so ridiculous? It was ridiculous. He would not choose any of the three options, hiding Ea, sacrificing her, or giving up the throne. He would put her in the open, enjoy all the beauty in the world, and all kinds of love, and share everything with her. Their child would also inherit his throne and be the king of Kemet. So what if he had such bloodline? He still had half of the bloodline belonging to the royal family of Kemet, and was destined to be as upright and brave as their ancestors. Rhea was wrong. Ea or the kingdom, why should he choose one? He had both. After careful consideration and planning, Amónhotep threw the papyrus that recorded all the secrets directly into the brazier. The yellowed paper gradually withered and shrank in the fire, and finally turned into a thin sheet. If you look closely, you can still see the handwriting on it. He sneered, took off a ring from his finger and threw it in. The thin sheet turned into ashes in the basin, and its original appearance could no longer be seen. The sound of breaking wind came from the door. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked in the direction of the door. Thutmosis strode in. His pure white loincloth was covered with bloodstains, and the dagger at his waist was still dripping with blood. Come on, follow me. His face was full of suppressed anger. For the first time in his life, Thutmose violated his superiors and reached out to grab the collar of his master's chest. Where are you going? Even so, Amónhotep's expression was still indifferent, without any surprise or astonishment. Let's go to a place where no one can hear us talking. Thutmose slightly raised the corners of his lips. He looked around. His face, still covered with the warm blood, matched his gloomy eyes, like a demon crawling out of the underworld. Follow me, go outside. He tried to restrain his anger and not let it out. What he just learned made it impossible for him to calm down. He was afraid that he would shout uncontrollably and everyone would know. Okay. Amónhotep nodded in response, so Thutmose loosened his hand and left a bloody handprint on his collar. There is no river in Sherahan. Looking around, you can only see endless sand and hillsides, as well as the solid fortress walls of Sherahan in the distance. Did you know it a long time ago? Thutmose pursed his lips and stood on the deserted hillside, looking at his master questioningly with anger. Know what? Compared with his anger, Amónhotep's face was still calm. He looked at the fortress in the distance and said nonchalantly, "She is a Hyksos, and an evil royal." Thutmose stared at him, approaching step by step, his eyes red. Your wife, Tia, daughter of Rhea, is a Hyksos. Do you have anything else to say? Where did you hear this nonsense? How could my wife be a Hyksos? This is a wedding blessed by the god Amon. He said it clearly, but Amónhotep was not at all panicked by being exposed. He even had a faint smile on his face. You deceived the god Amon. That was your deception. Thutmose roared furiously, are you going to deceive me too? You deceived your father, the great King Amos. You deceived your people. Even if you deceived everyone in this world. Can you deceive yourself? Your wife, that Tia, she is dirty, evil, and mean. The expression of the person opposite changed. Amónhotep's eyes became extremely cold. His fist with a strong wind hit Thutmose's face directly, leaving a bruise on his face. The punch came so suddenly that Thutmose even forgot to dodge. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his cheeks were swollen. He covered his face and looked at the opposite side in disbelief. His Highness beat him for a disgusting Hyksos bastard. I will never allow anyone to comment on her like this in front of me. Can someone guess who Jingu Shanin is and how he died? If you answer correctly, you'll win a prize. I guess next month will be a full-blown Reign of Knives mode. Chapter 240 Dare's Betrayal. After a brief silence, Thutmose raised his fist and hit Amónhotep in the face. Think it over. Wake up. You are the heir to the throne. What kind of magic potion has she put on you? Amónhotep stretched out his hand to block his fist and pinched his wrist. She didn't do anything, I did it willingly. Bullshit. Do you know who she is? Are you confused? You gave up all the people in the land for a Hyksos woman. Thutmose was so angry that he couldn't speak, his lips trembling violently. I ask you, do you realize clearly what this means? I know very well. Amónhotep's eyes were clear and determined. You know? Do you know what you will do now? Keep her by your side. Thutmose sneered. A Hyksos, why didn't he know the news earlier? How could he allow a Hyksos to be his master? I love her. It has nothing to do with who she is or what her identity is. I think you are crazy. He pulled his wrist away fiercely and grabbed Amónhotep's collar again. She is a Hyksos, with the same blood as the people in that fortress, the enemy we are attacking, and the one who defiled Kemet. Maybe I am crazy, but so what? She will never do anything to harm the kingdom, not now and not on the future. Amónhotep looked into his eyes and said with a frown. He spoke firmly, and Thutmose let go of his hand dejectedly, sitting down on the sand. Arguing won't solve the problem. I'm going to reason with you now. He patted the seat beside him and asked Amónhotep to sit down. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Let's assume for now that she won't pose a threat to the kingdom now, then what about in the future? Do you want her to be your queen? Yes, she will be my queen, the only one. Amónhotep lightly lifted the hem of his robe and sat down on the sand beside him. His voice was indifferent, as if he was saying this was a very ordinary thing. Amónhotep, son of the god Amon, do you know what you are saying now? There is a deep hatred between us and the Hyksos that can never be washed away. We finally drove them out of the country. You and I went to the battlefield at the age of 10, and we were only a little taller than the wheels of the chariot. Thutmose smiled bitterly and pointed a finger at the fortress in the distance in front of him. The city wall was flowing with the color of gold and iron under the afterglow of the setting sun, and it was extremely solid. How long have we been attacking this fortress in front of us? When your majesty drove them out here, you besieged this place for 3 years. This city is inhabited by the evil Hyksos, and their monarch Kamdi is in it, like a turtle. We have no way to deal with them. Now you tell me that you married a Hyksos woman with royal blood, one of the great Hyksos. How ridiculous, isn't it? The land that the Hyksos have coveted for a long time can be obtained without any effort as long as that woman gives birth to a child. Do you remember what a huge blow the coming of the Hyksos brought to the Kemet? Our temples were razed to the ground, innocent people were massacred and looted, the tombs of the previous kings were desecrated by them, and they stole the antiquities of the previous kings and placed them in their own palaces. Tens of thousands of people in the north were sleepless and worried because of them. How many people ate their own children because of the lack of food? Have you forgotten your family feud? Your grandfather, King Theo, had his skull smashed through by the Hyksos, and he had 5 or 6 wounds on his face alone. Your uncle, King Kamos, also died in Memphis, not to mention your father, King Amos, who has been fighting on the battlefield for many years. Did he pay a price? His body had long been corroded by the war, and his throne is about to be handed over to you. You are the one who is supposed to lead the Kemet people to move forward, but what are you doing? He tilted his head to look at Amónhotep, who was silent beside him, paused, and continued, Isn't your family feud a feud? However, the situation between Kemet and Hyksos today is that the family feuds of many people have come together to become a national feud. I knew you wanted to protect that woman, otherwise you wouldn't have asked Dare to swear to keep the secret, but who can you be responsible for by doing this? Amónhotep's expression fluctuated a little. His long eyelashes trembled and he exhaled slowly. He swore not to tell. It was his mistake. The person he thought was trustworthy and foolish turned around and told Thutmose everything. In that case, did Dare tell more people? His palm unconsciously grabbed a handful of yellow sand on the ground, but it quickly slipped through his fingers. Don't worry, I killed him." Thutmose sneered, not sure if he was laughing at himself or at him. "He didn't tell anyone except me. He trusted me, but I took his life." Thinking of Dare's incredulous look before his death, and the feeling of his friend's blood splashing on his face, he closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dare, I can't let you live. Your betrayal has turned you into a sharp blade that may turn against you at any time. For the legitimate heir to the throne, for this broken kingdom, you must die. Do you know why he betrayed you and risked being abandoned by the gods and sinking into darkness forever? Tell me." "I know, I was wrong." Amónhotep's sigh lingered on his teeth, and finally he sighed softly. How could he forget that Dare was the most loyal servant, but also a person who had a huge hatred for the Hyksos. He was a Kemet stranded in the north, and the invasion of the Hyksos brought a devastating blow to his family. From the ancestors to Dare, all of them lived under the high pressure of the Hyksos. In the north ruled by the Hyksos, the Kemet were living livestock. They were hungry, cold, did the lowest jobs, and took the meager income. Any Hyksos could make their lives miserable. Their status was not even as good as that of the Hyksos pets. Dare's family was originally aristocracy of the previous dynasty, but the fall of Memphis overnight and the escape of the previous king made them fall from the clouds to the lowest mud, becoming a group of people at the bottom of the discrimination chain. Before Amos invaded Avaris, the north was undoubtedly a living hell for the Kemet people. One day, Dare's father came back from his master's manor excitedly and told his family that His Majesty Amos was about to attack Avaris, and he would take them to the south in the chaos. As long as they left Avaris and reached the border of Memphis, they would be free men. That night, his father packed all his luggage and put it on the donkey. Mud carried his young sister on his back, and his brother held his hand. They were looking forward to a better future. There would be no hunger, cold or oppression in Kemet. But the city was broken, and the crazy Hyksos were unwilling to retreat like this. They carried out the last burning, killing and looting of the city. It was just a small package with only a few dried bread mixed with soil. That was all the luggage of Dale's family, but it became the target of looting by the Hyksos. For those breads, his father, Mutt, young sister, and brother who had not grown up yet, all fell under the scimitars of the Hyksos and fell in a pool of blood. His brother pressed his younger brother tightly under him before he died, and the last words he said to him were not to move, pretend to be dead, and wait until you grow up and take revenge. The blood of his relatives with a hint of rust entered his nose, and the bright red eyes reflected in Dale's eyes. From that moment on, his little heart was filled with hatred for the Hyksos. Chapter 241 Brothers. Although Avaris was destroyed, the Hyksos were still there. The young Dire chose to join the army. He followed the king's son, Amónhotep, who was also young. The fierceness of the expulsion war excited Dire. Only the blood of the Hyksos could wash away the hatred in his heart. With the end of the expulsion war, there was no more Hyksos on this land. Amónhotep became an idle and powerless prince, and Dire followed him loyally until the Battle of Sherahun started again. Amónhotep went out and led him to the front line. Loyalty. Dire did this in the past many years. He was more loyal than anyone else and more prudent than anyone else. It was because of this that Amónhotep chose him in a panic and forgot his deep hatred. Dire's ideal was the most normal. This was not only his own idea, but also the idea of all the Kemet people who knew this secret. The master's wife was a Hyksos, and the master had to protect that Hyksos. He made this decision to break his oath without any hesitation. Even if his soul was forever silent in the darkness and was forever abandoned by the gods outside the reed marsh, he would not let all the Kemet people in the future surrender to the Hyksos again with him. In the final analysis, it was he who buried Dire. This cognition made Amónhotep's heart bitter and sour. He was not a truly cold-blooded person. That was his companion since childhood and a comrade in arms who fought side by side. He was the one who killed Dire. This was the first person who died for his love. But it is undeniable that although Thutmose's approach was cruel, it was the most correct decision. Such news made Dale crazy. He would not care about anything. If Thutmose and Amónhotep had not changed their minds and taken action, he might have told the king directly or made it public. These two results, one is the destruction of Amónhotep, and the other is the destruction of the kingdom's faith. Neither is so easy to accept. Amónhotep and Dale are brothers who grew up together and fought on the battlefield for Thutmose. But in the current situation, he has no choice but to make a decision. Even the best brothers will have a close relationship. Between Amónhotep and Dale, he obviously chose the former. He didn't want to see riots in the country. didn't want to see the people lose trust in the royal family, and didn't want to see his brother fall into despair. It was also painful for Thutmose to make this decision to attack his close friend who had been with him day and night. The gods will not punish Dare. He will return to the arms of Nut in the welcome of the gods. The gate of the reed marsh will be open for him. He will live forever in the golden fields and will not sink into darkness, because he is a man who made the right decision. The gods will never abandon him. Thutmose's eyes turned red. He looked at his body covered with sticky red and said with sobs, "Brother, I am sorry for you. If you want revenge, please punish me for casting the evil curse. I have no complaints at all. Amónhotep, think about it carefully. If you really forget your family feud, then please think about your people. Who should avenge the people's hatred? And the gods of Kemet who were defiled by the Hyksos, they will never allow a woman like this to be the queen of Kemet. Once that Hyksos ascends the throne and gives birth to an heir to the throne, when her child sits on the throne, the entire Kemet will fall into a huge crisis. The Nile will no longer flood, hunger and disaster will cover this land, the gods will abandon us, and the castes of all the dead will never rest in peace." Having said that, there is no need to say anything more. The facts are already in front of him. If he is still stubborn, nothing you say will change his mind. Thutmose sneered coldly and stood up from the ground. His loincloth soaked with blood was now covered with dust and turned into a mixture of yellow and red. "But you need to remember that my hands are stained with my brother's blood. It doesn't mean I approve of your marriage. I will not accept someone of Hyksos descent as my king. If you insist on protecting her, then don't blame me. If you choose the same path as Dale, I will convey it to His Majesty and let His Majesty make a fair judgment to see whether your father, the great Amos, will agree to such a thing." After saying this, he strode down the slope without waiting for Amónhotep to react. Thutmose had already made it so clear that His Highness must also need time to make a decision. "Thutmose, you won't do this." He heard a calm voice behind him and paused. "You are wrong. For the future of the kingdom, I can do everything." "Then do you still remember Amon's? Do you remember how you felt at that time?" The voice was very soft, so low that it could not be heard at all without listening carefully, but it made Thutmose's face change suddenly. His breathing became sluggish and slowly became lighter, but he still couldn't resist the pain in his heart that attacked like a tidal wave. Amon-Meses. Amon-Meses. Such a brilliant young man. If he had not died, if he had not gone to Memphis, if he was still alive, what would it be like? They were brothers, brothers forever. The four people at the time were Amónhotep, the royal prince, Thutmose, the son of a general, and Amon-Meses and Tamesis, who were disciples of the temple's high priest. The four children met in Memphis. They were all young boys of similar age and hung out together all day long. Amónhotep was quiet and introverted, Thutmose was naughty, Amon-Mes was gentle and shy, and Tamesis was the most creative. They soon became a small group that gave everyone in Memphis a headache. Among them, Amónhotep had the noblest status, and Tamesis had the lowest status. He had noble royal blood, a general with unlimited future, and the chief priest of the temple of Amon had great power. Only Tamesis, the chief priest of the god Ta, so what? He would still stay in remote Memphis in the future and would never touch the center of politics or a corner of power. But everything changed soon. When the war was at its most turbulent and the people of the country hated the Hyksos the most, Amon-Meses's life story was exposed. His father was a traveling Hyksos who seduced his mother, the daughter of a nobleman, and gave birth to him out of wedlock. The blood of the Hyksos could not defile the sacred temple. Amon-Meses deceived the gods, his blood was dirty, and he was not even worthy of the name Amon-Meses. As a sacrifice to the gods, he had deceived the god Amon for so many years and must accept the most severe punishment. In another sacrificial ceremony, he was used as a sacrifice and emptied his body of blood that was considered dirty. No matter how hard Amónhotep and Thutmose begged, it was useless. The person who made this decision was the ruler of a country. No one could change Amos's decision. They could only watch their best friend die in front of them. The boy with fair skin, known as the purest son of God, was tied to the rack, and the dagger cut the blood vessels of his limbs. The pale bloodless skin and bright red-hot blood became the permanent picture they left on that day. On that day, Amónhotep and Thutmose swore to protect everything they cherished. On that day, a girl whose soft heart was broken prayed in her heart that she was willing to give up everything she could give up in this life, just to pursue the supreme power, and never experience such a loss of love again. Do you remember what we said at that time? You said Amon had never done bad things, And it made no difference to you whether he was a Hyksos or not. You said that no one can choose his own birth when he is born, and he has never deceived his gods. When Amon was set up, I felt so sad, as if there really was such a boy. He was the white moonlight in Amónhotep's heart, the youth that would never fade. Chapter 242. He is missing. Your Highness. According to the intelligence from the front, Sherahan has been breached. Shabaka knelt on one knee and reported the good news to Lin Ya. Break it? That's great. Did they say when they will return? When will Aksha come back? After hearing the news, she could no longer read the scroll in her hand. She stood up with a light in her eyes. That's great. The fortress of Sherahan has been breached. Does this mean that a boy will soon be back with her? Your Highness. What's wrong? The smile on Lin Ya's face faded slowly, because she could see clearly that despite such great news, Shabaka's expression did not show any joy. Instead, he looked entangled and hesitant. What happened? Why did he show such an expression? Did something happen to Aksha? Her hands unconsciously clenched tighter and tighter, and the papyrus roll tightened and made a fragile and broken sound. No, he said he would come back safely. Your Highness, it's like this, don't be too anxious, calm down first. Shabaka frowned, looking at her with a hint of panic in his eyes. You said, I can stand anything. She steadied herself and spoke in the calmest voice she could. She could accept any outcome, the worst being that she would leave with him. No matter where he was, she would be there with him, so what was there to be afraid of? His Highness Amónhotep disappeared in the pursuit. Shabaka swallowed and said with some difficulty, General Thutmose has led people to search for several days, but has not found the whereabouts of His Highness. In the wasteland of West Asia, he has not been found for so many days. Without water and food, coupled with hyenas and other wild beasts everywhere, His Highness's hope of survival is really slim. He did not dare to look up at Lin Ya's eyes. Such a thing happened to her husband who had just got married. No one could accept it. Over the years, his subordinates have also experienced such sudden changes. When he went to notify, he was used to the heart-wrenching cries of the family members, but now he was afraid to see the painful expression of the girl. I know. I was stunned when he heard the news, and then turned around quickly to help her master, but Lin Ya brushed her hands away. I'm fine. Her voice was very calm. If she could not vaguely hear the slight tremor in it, she would probably think that this matter really had nothing to do with her. Shabaka looked up and saw the girl who was trying to remain calm. Her eyes were red, but not a single tear came out. Your Highness, if you want to cry, just cry. I'm going to find him. Her voice was soft, but it was loud and clear, shocking everyone who heard it. Your Highness. The front line is very dangerous. Although the Hyksos have been driven away, anything can happen in such a vast wasteland in West Asia. Even if you stay in the fortress of Sherahan, it is dangerous. There are soldiers there, and no one will care about you. Shabaka hurriedly stopped her, but I only looked up at her, then quickly lowered his head, stood in front of her, and silently stated his position. Wherever the master wants to go, she will go there, no matter what, she will protect her master. He needs me, he is waiting for me in West Asia. Lin Ya pulled a difficult smile at the corner of her mouth, then turned around and went back. She had to pack her luggage now, and she couldn't wait any longer. He just disappeared. If no one can find him, she believes that she is the one who is in tune with him, and she will definitely find him. Tunia had turned back a few days ago, and she was very disapproving of the news that she was going to the front line. Your Highness, you just need to stay here, believe in God Amónhotep, believe in His Majesty. God will protect His Highness Amónhotep, and His Majesty will try his best to send people to find him. His Highness is the blood of God, and he will come back safely. Tunia, please forgive my willfulness this time. I have to go. If you insist on talking about God, will God's glory also descend on West Asia? West Asia, the place abandoned by God, as the Kemet people said. Your Highness, even if it is for His Highness Amónhotep, you have to stay in Memphis. Only here can you guarantee your safety. Memphis represents the entire North, and the people of the entire North need your dispatch. Tunia said hurriedly. When His Highness Amónhotep is not here, she is the person in charge of the entire North. How can she be so careless? But Tunia, the fingers that were packing the luggage paused only slightly. She turned her face, seemed to be smiling, but that smile was so sad that she almost cried. If it weren't for him, what would this North have to do with me? Without him, what would Kemet have to do with me? I am originally a wandering soul from the modern times. He is my only sense of belonging in this distant ancient times. If it weren't for him, then what is the meaning of my existence here? Your Highness. Her words choked Lin Ya, and she could no longer say a word of objection. Lin Ya and Ip were packing their luggage by themselves. There was not much to take. They only needed to pack some clean water and food, 1 or 2 sets of clothes to change, various wound medicines and bandages, and items that could prove their identity so that they would not be stopped at the border fortress. To Naya, after I leave, all the affairs of the palace will be handed over to you and Shabaka. Lin Ya hurriedly left this sentence and ran to the door without paying attention to her manners. It was already dark outside. The driver brought the fastest horse that could be mobilized and carefully checked all parts of the chariot. After finding no problems, he asked her to get on. The wheels rolled, the horse's hooves made a treading sound on the ground, the palace gate opened and closed, making a heavy sound of wood colliding, and the 2 people on the chariot were getting farther and farther away, running towards Sheraton in the far east, until they finally disappeared in the thick night and could no longer be seen. Shabaka and Tunaya stood at the door of the palace, staring silently at the direction where the chariot disappeared. Shabaka clenched the spear in his hand, and Tunaya clutched the amulet hanging from her chest. The 2 prayed in their hearts, "Gods of Kemet, please protect our highnesses, and may they arrive safely and return safely." On the night of the new moon, nothing could be seen clearly without the light of the fire. Ip drove the car out of the city and headed east. The cold night wind blew Lin Ya's cloak into a flying arc. She looked in the direction of Sheraton and squeezed the eye of Horus on her neck. "You must be fine. You must be waiting for me somewhere. We haven't finished this life yet. I will find you." This journey lasted 2 nights and 1 day. On the second night, Ip took out the map he carried with him and checked the direction they were in with the faint moonlight. "Your Highness, we have reached the border of Sheraton. When we get to the city, you should take a good rest. You haven't slept for 2 days." Ip frowned and suggested, "Let's talk about it later. Let's move forward first." Lin Ya said lightly, "Your Highness. Let's go." Ip's voice suddenly became tense. She raised the whip and lashed the horse, pulling the cart hard. The horse had not had much rest for 2 days and was not energetic. It ran a few steps and then slowed down. Pairs of small green lights appeared in the darkness. The fishy smell spread to the tip of the nose. Through the flames of the burning torches, Lin Ya saw that a circle of hyenas had surrounded them at some point. They had long manes, and their white teeth flashed coldly in the moonlight. Saliva dripped from their teeth, which made people feel cold for no reason. "We may not be able to escape." Unlike what Ip imagined, she did not look scared at all, and her voice was very calm, as if the ground was not a group of hyenas known for their ferocity, but some inanimate objects. "So what should we do now?" In this situation, the more experienced Ip should be the one to make the decision, but because of Lin Ya's position, the person in charge has changed his position invisibly. "What can we do? Either they die or we die." Lin Ya smiled and pulled out a scimitar from the scabbard at her waist. The shiny blade glowed silver in the moonlight, like the moon hanging in the night sky. Afraid? What's the point of being afraid now? She no longer knew what fear was. As long as she could find him, she was not afraid of anything. Chapter 243 His Trajectory. Thank you, Thutmose. After surviving the catastrophe, in the fortress of Sheraton, Lin Ya took a sip of the hot soup in the bowl and thanked the person opposite. Her strength was obviously insignificant compared to the hyenas. Just now, she almost felt that she was going to die. If Thutmose had not rushed over, she really didn't know what the result would be. "It's okay." Thutmose pulled the corner of his lips slightly and said indifferently. He had noticed the arrival of this woman a long time ago, long before she met the hyenas. He actually didn't want to save her. If she died in the mouth of the hyenas, this might be the best ending for the kingdom. In this way, Amónhotep might not be too sad and collapsed, because this was all God's will. It was God who wanted this woman to die, wasn't it? But everything seemed different from what he had imagined. Facing the vicious hyenas, she was completely different from what he had imagined. She didn't scream or get scared. She clumsily waved a scimitar in her hand, but unexpectedly blocked the hyenas' wave after wave of attacks. It was incredible, really incredible. Was it God's will that she would not die? Her knife really had no attack power. The shallow marks would only make the dogs more ferocious. She could only barely resist. The personal maid was good and killed several hyenas. Perhaps this was the reason why she was lucky enough to survive. At that time, There were only a few hyenas left, and the dog corpses fell to the ground in all directions. But it was obvious that people couldn't stand this kind of consumption, but dogs were different. They were full of energy. Even so, the woman still refused to admit defeat. She fell to the ground and weakly raised the scimitar in her hand. Perhaps it was this action that made Thutmose loosen up a little, shoot the remaining hyenas, and save her. How many days has he been missing? Where was he last seen? Where have you searched? After a few mouthfuls of hot soup, the chill was driven away a little. Lin Ya had no time to think about why Thutmose gave her such a strange feeling today, and asked hurriedly. 5 days. On the way of pursuit, we almost searched everywhere nearby. Thutmose raised his head and glanced at her, with a sneer on his lips. Go back to where you came from. Sherahan doesn't need you. This is not Memphis, a nest of gold and silver. I don't have time to protect a delicate woman like you. God Amon, if one day you are taken away by Anubis, even if he comes back, I have nothing extra to say. His words were sharp and sarcastic, which made Lin Ya feel more and more uncomfortable. Thutmose was not like this, and his attitude towards her had never been like this. However, she didn't have time to think about what happened. She came here to find Aksha, to find her lover, not to talk nonsense with people like this. Apart from this matter, nothing else was so important. I won't go back. He is my husband. I will stay and look for him. Don't worry, even if I die, someone will tell him that it has nothing to do with you. Okay, that's the best. He smiled coldly and opened the door. Perhaps it is because of you that he has to endure this kind of suffering. This is God's punishment. He left in a hurry, and Lin Ya didn't hear what he said. She just held a bowl of cold soup in her hand, not knowing what she was thinking. Your Highness, it's late at night. You should rest first. I'm not tired. If you are sleepy, go to bed first. Ip's voice sounded in her ears, and she suddenly woke up and refused directly. She didn't want to sleep, and she wouldn't sleep well even if she slept, but it was really dangerous at this time. But what about him? Where is he now? Will he face the same situation as she just now? Will he shiver in the cold wind? She found it hard to accept these scenes just thinking about them, so how could she sleep? Your Highness, I'll make the bed for you. You can't leave now. You should rest for one night. One night won't delay anything. Only after a good rest can you find His Highness Amónhotep. Ip moved his lips and whispered to comfort him. Forget it, you go. I may really need to rest for a while. As soon as the half-no said, Lin Ya felt dizzy. She hadn't closed her eyes for 2 days and 2 nights. Ip said all good things. I'm afraid that if she doesn't sleep for a while, she will collapse before she finds Aksha. The fortress of Sherahan is almost half of Kermody's palace. Although the financial resources here can't support the king's pomp that is too luxurious, the things that can be collected for decoration are already the best objects in the whole city. Moreover, Kermody's requirements are not low. Many things look ordinary on the surface, but you will find its wonderfulness when you use it. For example, this bed, an ordinary palm mat, is much more breathable and comfortable than all the beds Lin Ya has slept on, and it is not worse than modern ones. But even lying on such a bed, even with a splitting headache due to sleepiness, she still had difficulty falling asleep. She lay on her side on the bed, closing her eyes tightly, forcing herself to fall asleep, but she couldn't fall asleep. She was not covered with a sheet, but with a cloak he put on her when they separated that day. So many days had passed, and his scent on it had long faded, but she still breathed greedily. Only in this way could she temporarily calm down for a while, and only when she was surrounded by his breath did she feel calm in her heart. But Aksha, where are you? When it was almost dawn, she finally fell into deep sleep. The mist was floating, just like the day she came here. The water vapor on the Nile River was so thick that it could not be dissolved. She stood on the shore, opened her eyes in confusion, and saw the boats going upstream from the downstream in the distance. Acacias were blooming gorgeously on both sides of the river, and golden flowers were floating on the river. She squatted down, picked up a flower from the water, and put it in her palm. The golden fluff spread in her palm, spread along the lines of her palm, and slowly disappeared. The sedge boat stopped in front of her. She hadn't raised her head yet, but she heard a clear laugh above her head, and then a dry and warm big hand covered her palm that was wet with river water. Aksha tears slowly slid down and fell to her lips, but she felt nothing. She looked up blankly and saw her boy walking down from the boat, looking at her and smiling, Why are you crying? Who made my little wife unhappy? It's you. Where did you run to? They all said you were missing. They couldn't find you after looking for a long time, so I came here by myself. Silly, how could I be missing? You have to believe in your husband. He is a capable man. No one can let me die. Bah, you won't die, but where are you? Why can't anyone find you? Hearing him say death, she hurriedly spit out this unlucky word. Yeah, listen to me, you don't have to worry about finding me. I am the son of Amos, and nothing will happen to me. His voice gradually faded until it could no longer be heard. The warmth in his palm slowly disappeared, and the boy in front of him turned into air in an instant. She woke up from such a dream, her whole body soaked with sweat. Although she knew it was a dream, her heart strangely calmed down because of such a dream. The air outside poured in from the window, and she woke up from the sweat. He will be fine. He will be fine. She murmured to herself, but suddenly became depressed. You said you were fine, but where are you? Although she only slept for a short while, she couldn't fall asleep after being awake. She simply walked out of the room and asked the soldiers outside for more clues about his disappearance. At that time, we had just broken through the gate of Sheraton, and His Highness rushed in first, but the city was already empty. Kemet had already fled when he saw the situation was not good. The city was just an empty city. His Highness found traces of their hasty retreat in the outer city and led a team of troops to chase them. There was a flat land behind the fortress, so Kemet should have been captured soon, but for some reason, His Highness disappeared. The soldier thought carefully and narrated slowly, didn't he bring a team of people? Kemet. This name made Lin Ya feel dazed. She seemed to have heard of this name somewhere, but she couldn't remember it after thinking carefully. The strange thing is that the team came back intact, except for His Highness. By the way, I almost died yesterday. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244, The Path of Horus. Thutmose, have you ever thought that maybe Akshay is not missing at all? But he sneaked into Sheraton's retreating troops. The process of his disappearance was too bizarre. Lin Ya connected all the clues together and tentatively told Thutmose her inference. According to the part of the guards he took away at the beginning, they did not find Kemet's troops at that time, and there was no dangerous situation along the way, but His Highness just disappeared. There was no danger, no ambush or counterattack. How could he disappear from the face of the earth? Miss, it's not that I haven't considered the things you are considering, but no matter what, the people must be found, and the Hyksos must be pursued. His tone was not very good, and he emphasized the word Hyksos. For some reason, there was always a sharpness in what he said. It sounded nothing at first, but when you listen carefully, you always feel that something is wrong. Its eyebrows were tightly tangled together, and she looked at Thutmose, hesitant to speak. She wanted to say something, but she had no position to interrupt her master when he was silent. What did General Thutmose mean? He actually called the master Miss. The master might not have reacted for a while, but this was obviously a kind of contempt. Lin Ya was a little thick-skinned, but not so thick-skinned that she didn't feel anything when being scolded. Thutmose was Akshay's capable subordinate, and she didn't want to have such a meaningless dispute with him. She gently pulled Ipe's arm and said, "Let's go. There's nothing to say. I can find it myself. I never thought I could rely on others for anything." Stop. She turned her head slightly at the door and heard Thutmose's voice behind her. What? I'm kindly reminding you, brave lady, there are many hyenas in this Gobi desert. You'd better stay in the Sheraton fortress or return to your Memphis and don't cause trouble to others. Lin Ya stopped and said lightly, Thutmose, I don't know if there is any misunderstanding between us that makes you so sharp. I can understand that you have been running around for my husband these days and are exhausted physically and mentally, but where I want to go is my own business and has nothing to do with you. The person behind her seemed to make a sneer-like sound. She made up her mind and slammed the door and left. Your Highness, where are we going? I looked at Lin Ya, who was packing her luggage again, and asked in confusion, We are going to find him. But Your Highness, the general is right. This Gobi desert is very dangerous. Your life is the same as that of His Highness Amónhotep. I said anxiously. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. I've already thought of a plan. As she spoke, she took the time to turn around, pulled out a scroll from her waist, and unfolded it on the bed. "Look here." Her slender fingers pointed at a point on the scroll, and I leaned over to take a look. "Your Highness, you." This scroll was a map that she had obtained from the guards during the day. On it, a dot was dotted with red paint at the location where Amónhotep disappeared. But what she was pointing at now was not this dot, but a red circle nearby. Rafa, the end of the road of Horus. From here, it is no longer the territory of Kemet, but Lin. Behind it is a flat plain, enough for the Hyksos to escape back to their hometown. She pointed her finger there, her eyes shining. "If I were their leader, Kemet, I would disguise myself as a passing merchant and choose the way with the least loss to leave Kemet. The place where Aksha disappeared is near Rafa. I guess if he really followed Kemet, he might appear here." The checkpoints on the Horus road were letting people pass through every day. Although she knew that the possibility of him not leaving the checkpoint was low, she still wanted to try her luck. What if? Even if he was not there, she could ask the surrounding guards for some clues. If there were any, she could also blend in with the merchants and leave the country. It was always safer in the crowd. "Your Highness, is this really okay?" I hesitated, but after thinking for a moment, he decided to do as Lin Ya instructed. It was always safer to disguise as a merchant and blend in with the crowd than to walk alone. The Horus road was full of yellow sand, and two long fences stood on both sides of the road, like the barriers of a highway. Lin Ya and I squeezed in from a gap somewhere, blended in the crowd, and pretended to be merchants. Their faces were smeared black, and their robes were wrapped tightly. They looked around as they walked. There were all kinds of merchants and miners wearing various costumes, donkeys carrying heavy goods, and all kinds of goods. If it were not a straight trade road, some people would probably think this was some kind of market. There were indeed foreigners walking on the road, but it was not certain whether they were Hyksos. There were people from all over the country on this road, including Kemet, Lin, and even Nubians and Libyans. Although the road sections without fenced troops might be robbed by Helios bandits, this was the safest road, and it was not uncommon to see foreigners walking on the road. The checkpoint ahead was the exit checkpoint, but she still found nothing. She was secretly anxious. Soon it was her turn in the long line. Two guards stepped forward to stop the people and check their belongings. "What are you doing? What's in the package?" "Sir, we are going to Lin Ya to find precious items and sell them back." I stepped forward, bent down, and opened the package she was carrying. The package was opened, revealing several glittering gold jewelry inside. She picked up two heavy gold bracelets from it and stuffed them into the hands of the two guards respectively. "Oh? Are you going to Lin Ya? It hasn't been peaceful there recently. I heard that His Majesty Amónhotep has already conquered Sheraton, and those evil Hyksos are heading towards Lin Ya." The guards looked a little better after getting the gold, and even reminded them. However, the necessary inspection was still required. They rummaged through the package, and found that it was full of jewelry used to exchange for goods, and some water bags and dry food. There was no contraband. The two guards were a little confused. They didn't bring anything bad, so why did they give them such expensive bracelets? Taking advantage of the gap in their inspection, Lin Ya walked forward, and the wide hood blocked the view of the people behind him. Ahem, two lords, standing guard at this checkpoint all year round, exposed to the wind and sun. It must be very hard, right? Yes, I have been standing for half a month in a row. The sun is so strong every day, and my leather armor is so hot that it burns people to death. One of the guards took over and grumbled dissatisfiedly. Half a month. Lin Ya knew that if Kemet really walked this road, they should have an impression. "My lord, I have some questions to ask. Of course, I won't ask in vain." The chain inlaid with lapis lazuli was taken out of the package and rested on the guard's hand. This chain is obviously a good product. Such pure lapis lazuli can only be produced in Byblos. It is enough to buy a manor in Tanis. But for such a big deal, what information needs to be exchanged? The two guards looked at each other and pushed the things back in silent refusal. It was normal to take a small cut from the toll, but it was not worth it to betray the kingdom and sacrifice one's life for wealth. Lin Ya smiled knowingly, pulled out a more delicate one and pushed it over. "My lords, I know some of these questions will embarrass you. Please put your hearts back in your stomachs. God Amon, I will not do anything that is detrimental to Kemet, nor will I ask about any secrets. The reason why I am willing to pay so much is only because this matter is very important to me, but for you, It is just a small matter of moving your lips. In the eyes of outsiders, she now looks like a thin, small, malnourished teenager. Her eyes are pure, which makes it easy for people to have a good impression of her. In addition, her words are sincere and she has given many assurances. With such a huge fortune in front of them, who can resist this temptation? They looked at each other again, took the finances from Lin Ya, and put them into their belts. Ask whatever you want, great Amon. If what you ask goes against our principles, we will not tell you. Chapter 245 Gaza Inn. Of course, you are so kind to help me. I will not let you get involved, right? She smiled flatteringly and spoke nicely, which made the two guards' vigilance fade a little. Sir, it's like this. In the past few days, have a large number of people who look like Lin Ya left the country through this checkpoint. Lin Ya had never seen Hyksos. In fact, the appearance of Amónhotep is not much different from that of Kemet, but Hyksos are from West Asia after all, and they should look similar to Lin Ya. Are you kidding us two brothers? There will be Lin Ya passing through this checkpoint every day. One of the guards got a little angry at the time. What kind of problem was this? It was hard to guard here. Who would remember that there were more Lin Ya leaving the country on that day? No, I just want to know if there are large numbers of Lin Ya passing by. Lin Ya waved her hands and explained it again. The other guard was much calmer. He pulled his brother's hand back and thought carefully with a frown. Just Lin Ya. To be precise, it might be West Asians. Lin Ya was stunned for a moment and added, there are West Asians every day, but not so many. If you are asking about large numbers of West Asians, there were several West Asian merchant groups passing by in the past 2 days. Merchant group. She caught the words instantly and her eyes widened. West Asians walked on thin ice in Kemet. A few merchants were normal, but a merchant group was too much? Could this be the result she was looking for? Yes, a merchant group, with a size of about dozens of people. Her reaction made the guard more serious. After answering her question, his heart sank. Damn. When did so many West Asians leave the country? It was so abnormal. Could this be related to something? What goods did they transport? Nothing special, just some wheels, planks and reed mats. The guard thought for a moment and said, speaking of that group of West Asian merchants, they seem to live a well-off life and are very generous. They ride tall horses and pay the high taxes without blinking an eye. The same was true for their bribes. Wheels, reed mats, planks, horses. If Lin Ya still had some doubts in her heart just now she is basically certain. She doesn't know other things, but she clearly knows that the chariot she has ridden has been improved. Every part of the car can be disassembled and carried on the back on bad roads, and then reassembled and run on flat roads. Then have you ever seen a young man who is about a head and a half taller than me? He should be walking with that group of merchants. He is very handsome. His hair is about shoulder length. She paused, and tried her best to describe Amónhotep's appearance, but saw that the two guards' faces were more confused than each other. Who would? The one with a more grumpy temper was pulled back by the other. We usually don't care about such things, but now that you mention it, I really remember that there was a young man in the merchant group that left the country yesterday. I don't know if it was the person you mentioned. He seemed to have caught a cold, and his mouth and nose were covered tightly with a headscarf. I only remember that his eyes were exposed, and they were brown-black. What kind of eyes were those? The eyes were beautifully shaped, with clear black and white, as if the stars of Sothis were gathered in his eyes, making it hard to forget them after just one look. He only remembered that he had discussed with his companions at the time, saying how could such clear eyes appear in the eyes of the evil West Asians? Brown-black eyes. As soon as Lin Ya heard this word, he was sure at once, her trip was not in vain, nor was her guess wrong. Aksha really had mixed into the retreating Hyksos and left the border with them yesterday. Almost instantly, she made up her mind that she would also leave the country to look for him. However, if the Hyksos really left the border from here, they would have gone far after a day and a night. Where could they be found? While she was thinking, she saw a familiar figure. She immediately pulled out and turned around, tied her headscarf tightly, and walked out of the checkpoint. The person queuing behind them was a young man with gentle eyebrows and proper behavior, but the corner of his headscarf revealed a side that was extremely inconsistent with his appearance. The khaki headscarf covered his ear, but a gap in the middle could be seen clearly. A very long and hideous wound could be seen between the man's ears. If the wind was a little stronger, the cloth would stick to his ear, and on the flat side, The man was clearly missing an ear. Although he changed his clothes and revealed his face, Lin Ya was very sure of his identity from the deliberately low voice and the figure. He was the Hyksos she had deceived. All she could do now was to leave like an ordinary merchant. She could not think about it anymore. If she wanted to leave, she could leave. Aksha had only walked for a day. Since he took the initiative to leave, his life must not be in danger. She could stop at a place outside the checkpoint and quietly follow him from a distance. Since he was also a Hyksos, he would definitely go to meet up with his master Kemet. If Aksha was with Kemet's group, she would know the approximate location. If she knew the approximate location, she would be relieved. As for the danger, she could hide far away. She would not be afraid if she was caught. Did they still expect her to find the key to the treasure? After leaving the Rafa fortress, a little further ahead is a city in West Asia, Gaza. Because it is the first city on the Horus road, the city there is small, but its prosperity is no less than that of the big city of Kemet. It is almost a no man's land here. No one obeys any king. They only need to pay tribute to the surrounding areas on time. There are many commodities that are hard to find in the market. Businessmen and travelers trade freely here. Lin Ya and I pretended to choose and exchange goods. They saw the man walk into an inn in the city from a distance, so they quickly put down their things and followed him, renting the top floor of the small courtyard opposite him. 3 days passed, and she never saw the man go out. The courtyard opposite was quiet. She could only see him pacing in the courtyard sometimes, as if he was just staying here for a while. After waiting for a long time, she didn't get the result she wanted, but waited for another group of people to move in. They were a group of merchants who stopped by. Their attire was different from that of the others. The leader was dressed like a replica of an Arab woman. Her headscarf covered her face tightly, leaving only a pair of eyes exposed. Although this kind of attire was a little strange, the innkeeper was not surprised at all. The shop was opened in Gaza, and there were merchants from all over the country. It was normal for some of them to have some quirks. This group of merchants lived next door to Lin Ya. When she was on the lookout again, she saw the leader taking off his headscarf in the yard. He was a bald young man. She couldn't see what he looked like because he was facing away from her, but his bald back looked familiar. She thought about it for a long time and couldn't think of a name. When the man turned around, he put on his headscarf again. She didn't look at him anymore. There were so many bald people in Kemet. Who knows if he was a hawker or something she had seen on some street. Even if he really turned around, she might not recognize him. The bald man she didn't know strode back to the room, sat down as soon as he entered the room, ripped off the headscarf on his head, and fanned himself vigorously with it in his hands. Damn it, it's so hot, why should I wear a headscarf? If your highness doesn't finish his business, I'll be killed by the heat first. The wind was too weak, so he simply stopped fanning and wiped the sweat off his face. Do you know where that woman went? I won't know what to say when your highness asks about it. The woman had been away for several days. He received a message from Amónhotep at the Rafa checkpoint, saying that he had mixed into the Hyksos team and would stop in Gaza to meet up. Your highness is not on danger and they will meet soon, but what if he asks about that woman? Where should he go to find someone for your highness? I guess I can't change the habit of not using the computer until the evening every day. Chapter 246, Cave, Another Cave. Perhaps when people are unlucky, even drinking cold water will cause teeth to get stuck. On another night of keeping watch, someone unlucky was caught red-handed. The one-eared young man opposite disappeared without a trace. While she was wondering, she felt a gust of cool wind behind her and a curved knife against her waist. She turned around again and saw the man she had been observing for several days standing behind her. His face was exposed in the moonlight. His handsome face was completely ruined by the wound on the side of his ear. Coupled with his sinister smile, he looked like a Shura crawling out of hell. We meet again, your highness. He pinched Lin Ya's cheek with his hand and used a little force, and the color painted on it suddenly faded. The corners of his lips were slightly raised, and his mouth was grinning, revealing a mouthful of white teeth, which made people feel cold for no reason. Your highness, it's getting cold. Why don't you take a rest first? I'll do it for you. Its voice came from downstairs. Lin Ya's face relaxed a little, but she soon couldn't relax again. The coolness of the scimitar against her waist made her sober. The young man opposite was not panicked at all. He still smiled slightly, and even the arc did not change. Tell her that you go to bed now and let her come up to keep watch. As the saying goes, People under the eaves have to bow their heads. If people are under the scimitar, they must be obedient. Lin Ya nodded and did as he said. Your Highness, then I will make the bed for you. No, no need. The tip of the knife was moved forward again. She could already feel the tingling sensation of the tip of the knife poking her skin. The voice was a little trembling. Although Ipt was confused, he nodded and continued to go to the top of the building. Originally, he planned to let Lin Ya go down, but unexpectedly found that there were only shadows on the roof brought by the night wind blowing through the palm leaves. Where was there anyone? She was a little uncertain now. Did His Highness go back to his room from the ladder on the outer wall? But why didn't he take the stairs? Didn't His Highness just reply? Why did he disappear again? Multiple uncertainties made her lift her skirt and run downstairs quickly. She came to Lin Ya's room, took a deep breath, and opened the door. God bless, please don't let anything happen to my Highness. The door was opened, and there was no sign of anything being moved inside, but there was an obvious arc of a person on the bed. Your Highness. Ipt called tentatively. What's wrong, Ipt? I just went to bed. A familiar voice came from the bed, with a hint of fatigue. Your Highness, why did you come down the ladder? Ah, this. I suddenly saw it and thought that maybe I could come down from there. The voice was a little shy, and Ipt was relieved. She had served Lin Ya for a long time and knew that this master was different from ordinary people. She often had some strange ideas. It seemed that the master would suddenly jump down from the ladder. God will give you a good dream. Good night, Your Highness. It was the sound of the door closing gently. Lin Ya felt a little suffocated and speechless. That's it? That's it? Okay. I say, I'm in this state now, can't you take your knife away? She asked with despair. No, Your Highness is a smart man. What if I fall for your trick again? A shadow shrouded the bed, and a man's figure emerged from under the curtains. I'm smart? If I were really smart, would I still be coerced by you? Haha. She sneered, stood up from the bed under the man's coercion, and moved downstairs step by step. Of course Your Highness is smart, otherwise how could he use an empty box to deceive me? She was willing to cooperate, and the man was obviously in a good mood, and his tone was also very brisk. Why can't you change your way of thinking to think about this problem? Why do you have to say that I'm smart? Why aren't you stupid? How stupid does one have to be to run away after a box? Your Highness, please. With a creaking sound, a dark hole appeared under the floor of the first floor. He stood at the edge of the hole and stretched out his hand to make a gesture. This. Lin Ya felt that her eyes were dark. What was going on with this group of villains? Why did they dig holes one by one? No wonder she didn't see anyone going out these days. The transportation here depends entirely on the underground station. Why would they go out? However, they dug the hole here. Does this mean that this inn is their property? Her actions after checking in for the past few days were actually under their noses? Thinking of this, she became a little uneasy. Although she was prepared to be discovered and captured, she was still a little scared when she saw the dark hole. Why are you pushing? I have hands. After being pushed by the man, she said dissatisfiedly, Hands? You want to climb down? The man's low laughter came from behind her. She turned back and glared at him. I said feet, you heard wrong. It's impossible to be rescued by someone. Anyway, she won't die, so she might as well go down and broaden her horizons. While doing such psychological activities, Lin Ya closed her eyes, turned over and jumped down. The hole was not too deep, but it was more than one person high. She jumped straight down and fell on her back on the ground. There was a dull pain in her leg. She gritted her teeth and didn't scream. She squatted on the ground for a long time before she recovered. Then she saw the man landed easily without making a loud noise. Fall. The man raised his eyebrows and pointed to the ladder made of hemp rope behind him. Why don't you step on the ladder? Damn it. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you had a ladder? Let's go. He waited there for a while, and seeing that she was fine, he closed the floor with his backhand. Let's go. I broke my leg, she said unhappily. The man's expression was a little impatient. Seeing that her expression of pain did not seem fake, he slowly squatted down. I want to hold you. No need. What about your back? I am the princess of Kemet after all. How can I have such close contact with a foreigner like you? She raised her eyes and looked at him with a pair of clear and bright eyes, with undisguised contempt in them. I'm just injured, but it's not that I can't walk. I just walk slower. Foreigner. She heard the man repeat the word in a low voice with a hint of sneer in his voice. If you want to walk slower, then walk slower, but I warn you, don't play any tricks. Got it? She responded irritably, dragging up a leg that was obviously not working well, and moving forward step by step in the direction he pointed. The cave was winding and dark. It seemed to connect many places in the city. The underground passages were interconnected and led to nowhere. Some of them were obviously abandoned and blocked by some earth mounds. After walking for a while, the lights came on again. There were slanted torches on the wall, and the flames were blazing. She dragged her injured leg and walked, scratching the earth wall twice out of boredom. Where are you taking me? How long have we been walking? Will it ever end? It will arrive when it's time. Why ask so many questions? The further they walked, the colder the man became. At the beginning, he had some expression, but now he had a coffin face and didn't look like a living person. I have to know how long it will take, right? Otherwise, I'm so tired, I can take a break. Noisy. His brows wrinkled in annoyance, and he pushed her forward, causing her to stumble. If you don't want to ask, then who are you going to take me to see? To see your leader Kemet. You'll know when you meet him. He still didn't say much, but Lin Ya was not discouraged at all, and continued to chat with him about this and that. I say you are a good young man, and you are not bad looking, although, that is a little disfigured, but when will you stop hiding from here and there? Why can't you give up the dark and join the light? Besides, isn't your hometown on the Mesopotamian plain? Then go back. There is no future in wasting time here with Kemet. It's better to go back to the Mesopotamian plain to herd sheep instead of being trapped in such a barren place. Enough. Before she finished her words, she saw the man staring at her with a pair of bloodshot eyes, which scared her and she took a step back. Remember, it doesn't matter if you don't care, but the Hyksos will always be the king of this land. We could occupy this place more than 100 years ago, and we can still do it today, more than 100 years later. Chapter 247 Apo? Kemet? He looked really scary when he made this sound. Lin Ya pursed her lips and stopped talking. There was cold air blowing over. She wrapped her cloak around her and raised her head towards the direction of the cold air. The road in front of her became wide and straight, with a visible staircase leading up at the end. She paused for a moment and raised her foot after that. No matter what was going on up there, she would not be allowed to retreat once she got here. The man urged her from behind, and she moved forward slowly. Hey, is Kemet up there? If Kemet was up there, would Aksha be there too? Your Majesty's name. He only said half of the words, and then he closed his mouth again as if he remembered something. He only urged her to move forward, and his eyes behind her were heavy. She was not an ordinary person, she was a great Hyksos. Although she didn't understand, she was qualified to call Kemet by his name. Even if she walked slowly, she reached the end of the stairs after dozens of steps. Lin Ya looked at the intricate patterns on the carpet under her feet, took a deep breath, and raised her eyes. At the end of this cave corridor was a gorgeous mansion, or it was not quite appropriate to describe it as a mansion. If the ceiling was raised a little higher, the decoration here would be more suitable to be called a palace. Lin Ya came up from the underground and secretly glanced around the crowd above. Her eyes gradually became dim. No, Aksha is not here. There are all some unfamiliar faces here, but if he is not here, where is he? Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she found a group of people with scarves covering their faces behind the crowd. They were probably people like priests. They were wrapped tightly all over their bodies, revealing only a pair of hands and eyes, holding scriptures in their hands. Their heights and body shapes were different. Lin Ya was not sure whether Amónhotep was among them, but her heart inexplicably calmed down and she was no longer panicked by what was about to happen. The crowd surrounded the circular hall, guarding a man sitting in the middle like stars surrounding the moon. He sat on a chair with the gold carvings, supporting his chin and smiling lightly, as if waiting for her to come. The man was thin, with slightly sunken eye sockets and a high nose bridge. His face was covered with thick beard. His long, slightly curly hair was tied up with a golden headband behind his head. He was elegant and luxurious. She saw the man on the golden chair open his mouth slightly, and utter gentle words, "You did a good job, Nasi. The goddess Astarte will bless you, young child." The man behind him knelt down in response, shouting, "Your Majesty." After receiving the answer, he stepped aside, leaving Lin Ya alone standing there. She looked up and stared at the man opposite her without blinking. Is this Kemet? Yes, being called Your Majesty and sitting in such a prominent position in the middle of the crowd, it would be no one else except him. If she remembered correctly, she had seen this man a few months ago, but he was not called this name at that time. What did he say to her? He said his name was Apo and he was his uncle. Gunyu said that what he said was true and he was a trustworthy person. But now it seems that it is not entirely true. At least even the name he said before was a lie, wasn't it? Hello, Your Majesty Kemet. She smiled and greeted Kemet opposite. Well, my dear niece, seeing you again is really a joy for me both physically and mentally. Perhaps your arrival can help me solve my biggest doubts at the moment. Apo, or Kemet, raised his chin and walked down from the golden chair with a loving face. He walked to Lin Ya, took her hand very naturally, asked someone to bring a chair for her, and pressed her on the chair. My dear niece, I am your uncle. It is not good for us to be so estranged. Uncle? Don't joke. My uncle's name is Apo, not Kemet. Facing Kemet's goodwill, Lin Ya was unmoved. She slightly pulled the corners of her mouth, with a smile on her face. Maybe you asked me to come here for something else. I advise you to talk about the matter openly instead of using the unfounded family affection as an excuse. She smiled and looked around, implying something. After all, everyone here is yours. I am the bird in the cage and the meat in the pot. I can't escape no matter what. So, you'd better speak frankly. Oh, you really make me sad, my dear niece. Since you have no intention of recognizing me, then do as you say, so that others will not think that my uncle is not doing well enough. Kemet looked hurt and raised his hand and patted her a few times. Soon, the one-eared man named Nasi who had left earlier came up again, holding a wooden tray in his hand. On it were layers of precious blue cloth, and in the middle was a square piece of carved metal. Lin Ya squinted her eyes, and suddenly felt that the thing looked familiar. Before she could figure out what it was, Kemet smiled and picked up the metal block and put it in her palm. Dear child, maybe you know how to open it. Lin Ya could no longer hear what he said. All her senses were buzzing, and all she could see was this small piece of metal. This is clearly Gunyu's thing. It's her treasured item. This thing had been hidden in the statue of Beth that Gunyu worshipped every day until Lin Ya accidentally knocked off her nose. Later, it may have become fragile because of the collision, and the statue collapsed, revealing this thing. She didn't see it clearly at the time, and Gunyu didn't explain anything, but hid it again. Until she moved to Thebes, she didn't find the object, and finally slowly forgot about it. But why did it appear in Kemet's hand now? Could it be that? A possibility flashed through her mind. She raised her head and looked at Kemet with bloodshot eyes. On the 29th day of the divine marriage, you were there. This was a statement, not a question. Kemet's mouth corners were still curved, and he nodded approvingly. Not bad. Is this niece born to inherit not bad? Just based on this box, I can guess it. It's interesting. Why did you kill Gunyu? Her voice and her hands were shaking. If this was possible, she really wanted to kill him in the same way as this man killed Gunyu. But she couldn't. Everyone here was his. She might die without waiting for her to do it. My dear child, of course I came here for this box. Kemet laughed in her ear and tapped the metal block in her palm with his fingers. The clear sound of metal echoed. He raised his head, turned his body towards the crowd, and his voice became serious and solemn. She is a traitor to the Hyksos. Traitors can be killed by anyone. Goddess Astarte. This is Astarte's punishment. As his voice sounded, the crowd in the hall also became indignant and shouted with him. The sound was like a wave, deafening. Traitor. 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 Punishment of Astarte. Everyone can be killed. Punishment of Astarte. Lin Ya was shocked by the sound and took a half step back. The redness in her eyes faded a little. She seemed to inadvertently glance at the tightly wrapped priest on the other side, and thought in her heart, what do you want me to do? She understood that she couldn't kill Kemet now. Even if she had Amónhotep, it would be something she couldn't do. Or maybe Amónhotep didn't come here to capture Kemet, but for the metal block in his hand, the clue to the Hyksos treasure. Suppressing the hatred in her heart, she smiled at Kemet. The dead are dead. As a living person, I should know how to live better. I've thought it through. I will open this box for you. Ababa ababa ababa, another wave of votes for baby Voldemort. I love you so much. Trojan. I calculated the time today. It will be finished at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. It won't be more than 2 months at most. Isn't it a bit early to announce the end now? So I ran away first. Chapter 248 obtained. She wanted to do something to help him, wanted to get the box, and when this thought arose in her heart, she could not suppress it. The small metal box in her hand became heavy. Lin Ya lowered her head and pretended to study carefully how to open it. Her brain was thinking quickly about how to do it. What should she do to let her take the box away in front of so many people? I said, "Can you stay away from me? You stand so close, which makes me feel a little pressured." She pretended to study it for a while, then raised her head and said to Kemet, "Dear child, we are the closest relatives, how could I make you feel nervous?" Kemet smiled slightly, but moved forward a little. "I really didn't lie about this matter." She spread her hands helplessly, revealing her palms full of water stains. "I can't open it like this. The box is made of a metal, which is originally very smooth, and with wet hands, it is difficult to hold it tightly. Oh, I think, maybe what you need is a key." Kemet smiled, with only a slight curl of his lips, but his voice was full of temptation. His voice was very magnetic, and it echoed in her ears like a buzzing sound. "Good child, tell me, where's the key?" Her hand lightened, and the box was taken away. She tried in vain to get it back, but failed. "Good child, I am your closest family member. I think you know what it is used for. I have no intention of hiding it from you. With it, the Hyksos will regain its glory. With it, I can regain control of this land. At that time, you will be the one and only princess of the Hyksos. Princess, the supreme princess, my dear child, you will own half of the entire land, and everything you want will belong to you." His words were indeed very tempting. Lin Ya paused and took it back from his hand. "Even so, I have to make sure what shape the key is. You know, there are many keys in this world." Her expression was somewhat relaxed, and her words were very convincing. Kemet took a few steps back and returned the space to her. The box was made of an unknown metal, covered with strange patterns, uneven, with a narrow keyhole, tightly fitted, and not even a joint could be seen. If you don't look carefully, you won't know that this is a square box, you will only think it is some useless decoration. This distance is still a little short. If there is a little more distance to run back to the cave, no one should react so quickly, right? But with so many people, is it really possible? While she was hesitating, as if the sky was helping her, thick smoke rolled into the mansion. Someone shouted fire. First, and everyone was busy running out. Two loyal servants held Kemet on the left and right, and took him to escape through the window. For a moment, the whole scene was in chaos. Lin Ya took advantage of this opportunity and crawled back into the cave like a mouse. Following her were two masked priests who ran in during the chaos. She immediately knew what was going on and ran a few times faster. The surface of the box was glowing. She held it in her hand, not daring to relax for a moment, and ran into the depths of the winding tunnel as if her life was gone. Kemet was the first to calm down. His face could not be seen in the space filled with thick smoke. He stopped first and shook off the servants on both sides. "Stop. The fire was man-made. Bring my box back." Everyone was stunned and stopped in a daze. The fire was not big, but the smoke was thicker. In the hall opposite Kemet, the girl who was holding the box just now was nowhere to be seen. There was only an empty chair left, as if she was laughing at their stupidity and failure. Nasi covered his nose. "Your Majesty, I'll go after her now." "Chase? How do you chase her? Do you know where she went?" Kemet sneered. "Your Majesty, she must have run away from the cave." A heavy slap hit Nasi's face, knocking his head sideways, leaving a red palm print on his face. He didn't even dare to cover it with his hand. "Bullshit. I didn't know she ran away from the cave. This mansion didn't have a door at all. The cave was the only exit. If not from the cave, then where else could she go?" Kemet was furious. When had he ever shown this on the surface? He was very good, his niece was really very good, and she actually came up with this way to collude with outsiders to steal the treasure of the Hyksos. Where are you going to look for it? The underground passages lead to every corner of this city. You idiot. He lifted Nasi by the collar, lifted him off the ground, and threw him down heavily. What are you still standing there for, you stupid thing? Go look for it on the Gaza plain. She will definitely return to Kemet after taking the box. The most likely place to intercept her is the plain connected to the Horus road. Yes. Boom! The wall of the mansion made a loud noise, and the guards leaning against the wall screamed in panic, "Your Majesty! It's the Kemet people. They broke in. The casualties of the previous battle of Sherahan were so tragic that they shattered the courage in their hearts and made them like frightened birds. Why are you panicking? You don't know how many people there are. What does it mean to panic like this? Kemet roared and came to the wall. The broken earth wall was covered with spider web-like cracks. With another heavy blow, it shattered inch by inch, revealing a hole as big as a human body. In the thick smoke, the blade flashed, hot blood splashed, and the first Kemet soldier who came in fell to the ground, his head torn from his body. Hyksos warriors, follow me to break through the siege. We have the protection of Astarte. We are the ever-great Hyksos. This action ignited the little courage left in their hearts, and they drew out the scimitars at their waists and rushed out from the crack. Kemet, their great Hyksos, the great king, they were willing to fight their way out for him. One after another fell, some Hyksos, some Kemet, blood, fighting, knife flashes, the sound of the sharp blade piercing the skin. Kemet turned around at the door of the manor, kicked away a Kemet soldier who tried to stop him, and chopped the soldier's neck with a scimitar without hesitation. He didn't even have time to scream before he fell into the dust on the ground, and the blood and dust mixed into mud. Behind him were corpses all over the ground. He turned around without hesitation and merged into the darkness that was about to break. Fallen Hyksos warriors, I will always remember your contributions, and Astarte will not forget it either. Little boy of Kemet, do you think that a temporary victory is forever? I am a born great Hyksos. Sooner or later, there will be a day when I will come back. Your Majesty, will I still chase? Nasi escorted him to a safe place, looked at the guards behind him, who were less than 50, and asked hesitantly, the success rate of chasing alone is too low, but if you bring people to chase, who will protect your Majesty's safety? Is the secret agent in Memphis still there? Kemet did not answer his question, but asked something else. Your Majesty, there are still some secret agents, but they are no longer in the escort team. The rest are insignificant rear personnel. Nasi replied. Memphis was also an important city of the Hyksos before. Many of their people live there. After more than 100 years of integration, some people look no different from the Kemet people. They were deliberately left behind during the transfer process, just for the place where they are needed today. And this kind of people are the most difficult to detect when they are inserted into the Kemet people. Check? How to check? How many generations can we check back? It will only prove that they have lived in Memphis for generations and are very safe. Okay, no more chasing. Kemet chuckled, let's set off for Jaffa. Jaffa, another city along the coastline, is also an important place controlled by the Hyksos. Your Majesty, what do you mean? Nasi asked uncertainly. After following his Majesty for so long, he still couldn't figure out his thoughts. Did he really not want the map? Foolish child, you are still not as smart as your father. Let me ask you, who will be the next king of Kemet? Amónhotep. Then who will be his wife? Tia, that's right. Kemet smiled mysteriously and did not explain anything. Nasi scratched his hair in confusion. What does your Majesty mean? Could it be that she is the great Hyksos? Chapter 249. If you are, I will. She ran madly for an unknown amount of time, and it seemed that no one was catching up with her. She was breathing heavily like a bellows, and her chest was aching like fire. Lin Ya wanted to stop but didn't dare to, because the thing in her hand was a treasure, very important. Stop, no one is chasing you. A clear voice came from behind her, and she gradually slowed down her pace. Her eyes suddenly turned red, and she turned around and flew over, like a bird returning to its nest, and threw herself into the man's arms. You bastard. You bastard. You ran away with someone without even saying a word. Do you know how worried I was? The little hand clenched into a fist and pounded randomly in the man's arms. The man chuckled softly, took off the veil on his face, and left a kiss on her tearful cheek. Well, I know I was wrong, I won't do it again next time. He pulled her hand to touch his chest, letting her feel the strong heartbeat inside. Look, I'm still fine, aren't I? You're so proud? How dare you do it next time? She glared at him angrily, and eyed him a few times but still felt unsatisfied. No, I will never do such a risky thing again. Amónhotep touched his nose with amusement, with helpless pampering on his face. Even for you, I won't take risks again. Keep your word. She pursed her lips and looked at him, but her anger subsided. She was not very angry in the first place. He was still alive and well, and this was the biggest joy. Are you done yet? Can you please go out first? Go back to your room and do this kind of sticky stuff. Another priest pulled down his veil, revealing a round head, and his voice was full of impatience. It was Thutmose. Thutmose? Why are you here? Aren't you in Sherahan? You knew his whereabouts, but you didn't tell me? A feeling of suffocation rose from her chest, and she took a step back, feeling that she had been deceived. They all knew that he was fine, but no one told her, leaving her to worry in sleepless nights. What? Gaza is yours? Only you are allowed to come and not me. Thutmose directly retorted, and sneered halfway through his words. In the city of Gaza, the Hyksos have more power than the Kemets, and it really belongs to her, haha. Thutmose, what do you mean? Lin Ya was so angry at his behavior. Since this trip to Sherahan, his attitude towards her has taken a sharp turn for the worse. She didn't do anything to provoke him, right? Why are you putting on such a face for no reason? No one owes anyone anything. Why should you bear this kind of anger? What do I mean? You should ask yourself what you mean. You. Enough. 2. Say less. You are a Hyksos bastard. What is your purpose in staying in Kemet? He was interrupted by Amónhotep before he finished speaking, and he closed his mouth reluctantly. Aksha. What he said was not right. Although he was talking about Thutmose, it was also a way to keep things quiet. Did he think it was Thutmose's fault at all? Okay, yeah, don't be angry. Amónhotep smiled with curved lips, took the stubborn little man back into his arms, and coaxed him in a gentle voice. I left a message for 2 at the Rafah checkpoint, so he came here to join me. What about you? How did you find this place? Thutmose's prejudice against Lin Ya gave Amónhotep a headache, but this was not only his own prejudice, but also involved a feud between Kemet and Hyksos, which was not so easy to dissipate. His Yaya didn't know anything yet, and he had no intention of letting her know. Oh, so you are the ones who have the best understanding. How did I get here? I guessed all the way here. So I am redundant here? Then I will go back. Thinking of the worries and thrills along the way, Lin Ya was furious. She was so angry that even the innocent Amónhotep was not spared and was vented with anger. How can it be that you and I have a tacit understanding? It is you who have a tacit understanding with me, my Yaya. You have no clues, but you can find me. I am very happy. He smiled gently and kissed the top of her head again. Lin Ya snorted when she heard this, broke away from his arms, tilted her head and continued to walk forward, but her ears were red. Hey, why are you walking around? There are so many roads here. If you lead the wrong way again, we will all be lost. Thutmose shouted from behind, I led the wrong way? Then you come. Lin Ya stopped walking, stopped where she was, and laughed coldly, finding the way, that depends on your highness. Thutmose was called out, his face was sullen, and he tugged at Amónhotep's sleeve like a servile person. I don't know either. Amónhotep cleared his throat awkwardly, I came in with him. Me too. Thutmose was stunned and speechless. He looked up at Lin Ya silently and coughed uncomfortably, ahem, that, do you know the way back up there? The girl in front ignored him and turned her head to the other side. After a while, she spoke again, do you think I am you? Don't you remember the way out? Then you lead the way. I am a man, I can't argue with a woman about these things. I am a man, so I will just bear a little grievance. Okay, apologize. She tightened her face and raised her eyebrows. Apologize? What am I apologizing for? Thutmose pointed to the tip of his nose with his finger, incredulous. This woman actually wants to apologize to herself? She must be dreaming. What a beautiful thought! Exclamation mark. You have been sneering at me these past few days, shouldn't you apologize? I apologize. Thutmose gritted his teeth and turned to walk to another fork in the road. Dream on. Damn it. If it happens again, he will definitely find the way himself. It's just knowing the way. What's so great about it? Seeing the man disappear, Lin Ya shrugged her shoulders and said, just go ahead, if you don't want to apologize, then don't apologize, let's see how far you can go. Let's go. She stretched out a hand, grabbed the boy behind her, and walked into the depths of the corridor. Aksha, the torches on the wall jumped, stretching the shadows of the two people long and leaning against each other. Huh? What's wrong? That? Her long eyelashes cast a shadow on her face, and she hesitated to speak. Is it okay to really throw Thutmose away? He won't get lost, right? What if he walks into the territory of the Hyksos? Wouldn't he be caught? Don't worry about Tuthmosis, he'll be fine. Seeing through her thoughts, Amónhotep's eyes curved into beautiful crescents and he held her hand tightly. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of dragging footsteps echoed throughout the corridor. They turned around vigilantly, and then immediately relaxed. I apologize. The shadow of a round head was projected on the wall at the end. Thutmosis dragged his feet and walked over listlessly, as if he had been sucked dry of energy by some goblin. Isn't it just an apology? I was wrong. He said it lightly, and when he opened his mouth, he spit out 3 Is before he could utter a complete I was wrong. But as soon as he finished speaking, his aggrieved expression immediately became sharp again. Woman. I'm telling you. Don't just look at me apologizing. If you can't find the way, he pointed a finger at Lin Ya, but he couldn't say the second half of the sentence. What about you? Lin Ya was happy and moved forward, but he looked at Amónhotep and retreated again, breathing heavily. Damn, what can he do? Even if he wanted to kill him, it wouldn't work. The prince was still here. What was there to say? Tell me, what are you going to do if I can't find the way? The more aggrieved he was, the more proud Lin Ya became, and she spoke again provocatively. After waiting for a long time without any reason, she raised her chin proudly, turned around and pulled Amónhotep forward. Is there anyone who cares about this? Thutmose burst into tears. Did his prince abandon him? Not saying a word for him? Treating him like air? Did he really have a wife and didn't want anything? He was still a relatively powerful general, right? That's it? He raised his arm slightly, and his shadow was reflected on the wall. The shadow of those hands held the neck of Lin Ya's shadow and shook it quickly. If you can't find the way, I will go by myself. Amónhotep, you don't have to worry about Tuthmosis, he's fine. Thutmose, tears as white as noodles, is this the master I want to follow for my whole life? Have I been abandoned? Lin Ya, yes. Spitting blood to the sky, Thutmose, dead. Saying the most cowardly words in the most ferocious tone, he is indeed the funny one, Tutu with a big head. Chapter 250 If I were Hyksos. Following the marks left before, they finally crawled back to the courtyard before dawn. Ipt hadn't slept yet. She had been on guard all night. When she heard the noise, she came down and opened the door, intending to help her master get up. You're up, Your Highness. In addition to Her Highness, there were 2 more people in the room. The target they had been looking for all the way, His Highness Amónhotep, and General Thutmose, who seemed to be in a bad mood. Pack up and leave quickly. Before Amónhotep could speak, Thutmose walked out with a dark face and tossed his sleeves. Well, he might be in a bad mood. Ipt, let's pack up and return. Lin Ya looked at Ipt's confused face, spread her hands and said. The way back was surprisingly smooth, but the air pressure along the way was as low as it could be. Amónhotep and Thutmose had a disagreement, because of the soldiers who were lost for no reason this time. Amónhotep meant that his original goal was just a box, and he couldn't let the Hyksos get it. Since it had been achieved, there was no need to make unnecessary sacrifices. But Thutmose didn't think so. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, he would do his best to hunt down Kemet. So what was originally meant to divert their attention turned into a surprise attack. The outcome was obvious. Kemet was much stronger than he expected. The detachment he brought out had been damaged to the point of being almost gone. On the coast of Gaza, a group of people were rushing along the coastline silently. The air pressure was so low that it was suffocating. For this situation, Lin Ya didn't know what to say, and could only silently hold Amónhotep's hand. She knew he felt bad. If they had sacrificed to get the box, he might not be like this, but no, the thing was already in hand, and they could have returned safely, but now they could never come back. Those soldiers were also flesh and blood, warriors carefully trained by Kemet. For them, dying in a foreign land was the most severe punishment. No one would remember their names, no one would worship them, and their souls would forever wander in a foreign land, truly dead. But she also understood that Thutmose's position was not wrong, so it made him feel more guilty. Aksha. Lin Ya touched the heavy bag on her waist, smiled at him, and had an idea in her mind. What happened could not be reversed, so could the gains make him happy? It seemed that she hadn't shown it to him yet, and he didn't ask. She took the carved metal block out of her pocket, held it in her palm, and handed it to him like a treasure. Look, this. Is it the Hyksos treasure you want? I got it. She said happily, but the boy didn't look happy at all, but frowned even tighter. With a lightness of hand, he took the box away and threw it directly to the ground, where it landed in the sand and splashed dust all over the ground. "Your Highness. Are you crazy?" Thutmose was the first to rush over. He quickly picked it up from the ground, wiped off the dust with his hand, and carefully checked it before he breathed a sigh of relief. Aksha! Lin Ya was stunned. Why was it thrown away? Wasn't this something he wanted very much? How could he just throw away the box that he had spent so much effort to get? "Yeah, I'll tell you again, I don't need you to do this kind of thing." His wrist was pinched and tightened, and he relaxed when he saw her slight expression of pain. "Be it the treasure of the Hyksos or anything else, none of this is worth your life." He stared at her, frowned, and looked into her eyes word by word, "Including my life." But she wanted to explain herself anxiously, but was interrupted by him directly. She leaned heavily against him, her waist was held tightly by a pair of arms, and his head was buried in her neck. "No buts, I can't lose you." He wanted to say this a long time ago. No one knew how he felt when he saw her appear in that hall. She painted her face and dressed herself up so that she didn't look like herself, but he recognized her at a glance. This was his wife. She came to find him, without any clues, just with a heart full of love. At that moment, his heart was mixed with emotions. He was touched, but more of annoyance and worry. He seemed to always have everything planned out, but he could never predict her heart and her actions. Why couldn't she just listen to me? Why couldn't she just wait for me obediently? Why did she have to do such risky things to make me worry? "No, Aksha, my life is not more important than yours. Without you, what's the point of my existence?" Her nose felt a little sour. She took a deep breath and hugged him back. His body trembled a little. She paused. "I'm sorry for making you worry." "What nonsense. It's me who made you worry. Anyway, we will be fine in the future, and no one should do risky things." "Yes," he responded softly, and felt his heart skip a beat, and then an infinite softness emerged. What a silly child, how could he never take risks again? Adventure is a man's nature. There will be many, many battles to fight in the future, and many, many places waiting for him to conquer, but next time he will be well prepared and won't let her notice it. The sky was covered with a black veil. As night fell, the sea breeze was bitingly cold. They chose to camp under the leeward reef. The bonfire was lit. The soldiers were exhausted after walking such a long distance during the day. Now that they had a break, except for a few who had to keep watch, they all laid down one by one and soon fell asleep. It was so quiet that only the crackling of the fire could be heard. There were so many things in the day, and many of them were left behind. But now everything was quiet, and her mind was in a mess. Apo was not called Apo, but Komodi. He was the king of the Hyksos and their majesty. What was her identity? He said he was his uncle and he called her his dear niece. Was all this true? But if it was true, how absurd would it be? A sand crab emerged from the sand, moved sideways to her feet, and stretched out its thin claws, but was flicked aside by a hand before it could grab something. The sand on the side sank, and a dark shadow enveloped her. Her body lightened and she was held in someone's arms, and then a warm cloak enveloped her and him together. What are you thinking about? Wearing so little. A hand touched her bare and cold shoulders. Amónhotep frowned and covered her with his cloak more tightly, trying to warm her with his body temperature. I thought there was a bonfire, so I forgot to put on clothes. She paused, changed her position in his arms, and her long eyelashes trembled slightly, covering the surging thoughts in her eyes. Actually, her lips moved, wanting to say something, but stopped, and just pulled his arm to wrap herself tighter. If she looked up at his eyes, her voice was difficult. What a difficult thing it was. If he knew, if she was really a Hyksos, would she still have him? But if she didn't say it, wouldn't it be a lie? If between us. What do you want to say? Her fingertips were icy cold. Amónhotep covered them with his hands, but there was no sign of warming up. Why are you so cold? I'll carry you back to the reef. The wind is too strong. He stood up neatly, picked her up by the waist, and carried her back to the leeward side of the reef. The reef and the sand were warmed by the campfire, and he put her down with satisfaction. He was so nice, he had always been such a nice person, but was she going to lose him? The hot water was raised to her lips, and she took a sip from his hand, but the coldness and bitterness in her heart could not be relieved. Just say it. In that hall, he heard what he should have heard, he just didn't say it. The sea breeze blew, the waves surged, A full moon hung in the sky, and the person in front of her was so gentle. Aksha, just say it, sooner or later you have to face it. The words were vague in her throat for a while, and finally squeezed out dryly, what if I am a Hyksos? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.